Hypothetical situation. It's a Tuesday evening, and the ant that you brutally murdered by walking on your front lawn was named Kevin. I bet you didn't think about that, did you, you monster? And Kevin's entire ant family is gonna starve, because you have no moral compass. Ladies and mantises, welcome to Grounded 2, the survival game for arachnophobes. And I have 100 days to fill out the entire Pokédex, defeat every single bug, finish every single ranger quest, and complete the entire main story quest to save a burger grilling robot and become normal sized once again. So without further ado, it's time to 100% Grounded 2. On day 1, Carl woke up in a lab.
Yes, science!
Okay, yes, his name is Pete, but I'm changing it to Carl.
And you will respect my authority!
Anyways, everything seemed normal at first, but when I entered the great outdoors... Whoa.
Brook Hollow City Park. It's been miniaturized a second time.
I found an extra large plastic spork, a half-eaten hot dog that was definitely not hot and ready, and the roach from SpongeBob after finishing that Krabby Patty.
Cockroach, a vestige of the Carboniferous era.
But then I realized this stuff isn't actually humongous. Oh no, I'm short. The family trip to the park went horribly wrong, but that's not even the worst part. Carl's robot best friend, named Burgle, was decapitated by a science major.
Dr. Tully assassinating Burgle.
And Carl was the only one who could save him. So after being violated in more ways than one,
please keep your arms still as the Scabby 2K's microneedles connect to your blood vessels.
Excuse me?
You are now tiny, but well equipped. Congratulations!
The rest of day 1 consisted of me finding some degenerates, realizing that everyone on this wall that won Employee of the Month is no longer alive. Well, that's concerning. Finding 2 backup pairs of Carl's favorite footwear, and finishing up all of this tutorial stuff, so I analyzed some things inside my brain.
Knowledge.
Firmly grasped this pebble, plant fiber, and a sprig, and crafted the world's smallest spear with my bare hands. I then proceeded to break off the world's smallest spear into the eye socket of a degenerate, with the sole purpose of harvesting his fuzz. Anyways, we'll skip over the boring tutorial stuff, but it ended inside this room, where I got a glimpse into the devastating torture they were doing on Burgle.
It sounded like a hostage situation.
And with that, my goal was clear. I had to save Burgle from Bill Nye the Science Guy. And after that, I had to figure out how to get Carl back to his normal size. It's time to 100% Grounded 2.
Now you are hardworking.
Omni-tool? An all tool? Intriguing concept.
It was now day 2, and Carl had finally entered the park. And my first course of action as a tiny person was holding a public execution on the useless members of our society. And I harvested that man's remains, while Sheldon the snail watched in horror. But after Carl was finished committing some atrocities, I found the Ranger Outpost, where I got my very first Omni tool, but you'll see what that is later, because someone was trying to FaceTime me on the computer in the other room. But the door was locked, and I needed to figure out how to get in. The back door, on the other hand, was infested with heathens, and it was way too dark inside anyways. I needed to craft a torch, so I headed back over to the drug lab, and I checked my map. The park was absolutely massive, considering I'm built like an amoeba, and if I plan on completing 100% of everything in this game before day 100, I really am gonna have to get exploring. So after eluding some bandages and enough needles to be in rehab, I tried to open the locked door again.
I returned to admire the locked door. Very locked indeed.
But the actual reason that I was back here in the drug lab is to analyze some more materials to unlock all of the crafting recipes. So I attended a college seminar on chunks of weevil, and I graduated with my bachelor's in weevil carcass. But I also scanned all the basic resources, which gave me all of the regular crafting recipes, including a torch, which is exactly what I needed. I just needed some dry grass chunks to craft one. So after introducing myself to a plus-sized lady, hey, how's it going, dude, and eviscerating another useless member of our society,
each time when I come here, I am abused.
I used my Omni Tool's axe to chop down a blade of grass, haul it back to my drug lab for science, and started picking up every material that I could find. It always makes no sense in these survival games how people can just carry a stack of 100 trees inside their backpack. Some of them, they just be carrying anything. But at this point, I had everything that I needed to craft a workbench. I also found a giant can of soda that was covered in egg sacs. I really hope that was soda. Nighttime was already approaching, and I can't build these things inside of the drug lab. I needed a starter base, and with nightfall approaching, I had no time to waste.
I do it again.
And just like that, Carl was no longer homeless. Welcome to my humble abode. Where the door doesn't work, there's no roof, and my bed is a hologram. But Carl was a bit of a mutant in this world. He's over here giving unsolicited dating advice to aphids.
Autumn is their time of sexual reproduction.
But you know what else is a teenage mutant? I'll give you a hint. They're very green, very nostalgic, and they have a brand new look in Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is partnering with Paramount in one of the most reptilian crossovers of all time. And the champion design for this one, bro, I've never seen a turtle look so menacing. But with 6 new, highly nostalgic, legendary champions, including Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, April, and Shredder, you can finally live out your childhood fantasies of being green. The events are running from August 21st to November 21st, where you can get your hands on Michelangelo for completely free by just logging in for 7 days. He's got some really strong debuffs and some really cool nunchucks. But there's also Donatello, who is a top tier support available through the Fusion event, and Leonardo, Raphael, April, and Shredder can all be earned through other limited time events in-game. And if you manage to collect all 6 champions, there's a special bonus reward, and there's also an event dungeon, where you can earn the exclusive Chronophage gear set if you manage to take down Shredder himself. So download Raid today using the QR code on screen or my link in the description below, and you'll immediately get a huge starter pack and the epic champion Tayrel. He's a high elf and one of the best epics in the game. And when you hit level 15, you're gonna get Rector Drath. She looks kinda creepy, but she's a great support. And if you're a new player, there's 5 entire promo codes you can also choose from. Green Warden Ruark, Alice the Wanderer, Tuhanarak, Sun Wukong, and Dolan Foulbeard. You can only use one new player code though, and I'd recommend choosing Tuhanarak since Void Legendaries are super rare to come by and she's a great support. But I have to say, Sun Wukong is one of my favorite champions in the entire game. And once you're in, come find me under the clan Juztify's Jungle. Everyone is welcome to join, and we even have Harambe's father as our mascot. So don't forget to download using the QR code on screen or the link in the description below, and thank you to Raid for sponsoring today's video. So after chugging an entire water droplet to quench my thirst,
Nothing like H2O.
I finally completed the task of simply crafting a torch. And, you know, I would expect someone to hang up considering I haven't answered this phone call in over 24 hours, but I made it back to my lab, and to my surprise, the phone was still ringing. Somebody's got no life. So I spent the rest of the night getting 3 more PhDs in dry grass, clover leaves, and dead bodies. I'm certified, but day 2 was coming to an end, and it was almost time for battle. So I made a warhammer, 2 more spears, and a poncho to protect Carl's internal organs. And on day 3, after raining death upon my mortal enemy,
Make you self-conscious.
and executing another peasant,
Each time when I come here,
I changed my camera to third person, which in my opinion is actually way better on this game. Does that say the national anthem is going to be played on a kazoo? That's about the most American thing I've ever seen. And it was now time to answer the phone call. So I made my way to the back door and declared war on a dust mite. All of that fighting made Carl kinda thirsty, but the only water that I could find was this disgusting looking puddle.
I hope I don't catch cholera.
I think I have a disease. But I was also getting super hungry, so I made a campfire to slow roast some weevil.
Entomophagy is better at this scale.
But after physically assaulting a few more clovers for their clovers, I finally entered the cave, where I found some mold stalks, whatever that is, and of course, a few degenerates. But I made it. Hello?
Oh my god, you're alive. Oh, I was so worried.
This right here is the face of a lady that just sat there for 30 minutes calling my phone. But she was part of the organization that shrunk Carl to the size of a breadcrumb. And despite my best efforts, she wouldn't give me any information on where Burgle was being held hostage. On one condition, that is. She said that if I helped her with her research, then she might think about it. I didn't really have any leverage or anything to go off of, so I agreed for now. But anyways, I now had access to the ranger station, where I can upgrade my Omni tool, so I purchased the Omni Hammer upgrade for things like rocks and acorns, but for an upgrade to the axe, I would need cockroach chunks. Well, that's disgusting. And there was also this little shop thing where I can spend science points to unlock building and food recipes such as nachos and meatloaf. Gordon Ramsay would be proud.
And it looks like Gandhi's flip-flop.
So after grabbing some more mold and attending a science class, I opened the back door to the lab, grabbed some sprigs, and unlocked the Omni shovel. But then I dehydrated again. I'm gonna die in less than 2 minutes if I can't find water. And at the time, I didn't really understand that you can chop down the grass to get the dew droplet. I thought they were all too high for Carl's little legs. So once again, it was either the nasty swamp water or the afterlife.
Ugh, I can taste a whole ecosystem. It melts right off the exoskeleton.
Anyways, the evil lady with the world record phone call wants me to go here into an anthill. But before that, I had some stuff to take care of. First of all, I found this dandelion.
Oh, look, a dandelion.
These things drop weed stems, which are needed for the doors on my base. But there were 2 problems. I want to make this house bigger, and I am currently evaporating. Finding water in this game, when you don't know how to find water in this game, was getting really annoying. But to make matters worse, well, this happened. Oh, what is that? Yeah, good times. But when I reincarnated, my water was full, and I got my stuff back pretty easily. So I decided to demolish my walls and do some home renovation. I also finally finished making my bed. Well, I tried to anyway. Why is it not letting me build it? And I don't know what the problem actually was, but after I made a basket to hold all of my life savings, the bed magically just worked. Okay then. But anyways, I haven't slept in over 3 days. And after attending a few college seminars on how to make stuffed gnat, Carl's brain achieved its second brain cell. And just like that, it was almost time for bed. So I spent the rest of the day making a campfire to slow roast some gnats.
Someone cooked here.
Slurped up an
clean.
entire water droplet and admired the wildlife. Everything had gone pretty well so far, but nothing could prepare me for what tomorrow had in store.
Light.
On day 5, I chugged another droplet of water.
Feel my cells rehydrating.
And after my morning science lecture, it was time to continue my quest, when I came across this ladybug. Hello, sir. Now, anything with like 6 different breaks on their health bar, it's probably really strong. But I saw that, and then I thought to myself, you know, it can't be that bad, right? I couldn't have been more wrong. When I fully recharged my warhammer to bonk that lady's noggin. Oh no. Well, the only thing that happened was the dude evolved into Thanos himself.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Each one of his ladylike advances almost sent Carl into a coma, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. And honestly, I think we did pretty alright. Wait, he's healing? But it didn't matter, because in the end, I perished. Anyways, it was time to continue the quest. So I headed towards the waypoint, and I found something moving underground. Ew, bro. I was almost there, but I took a quick detour to incapacitate an ant named Kevin, remove him from life, and harvest his remains, all while George Washington himself watched from the sidelines. What's good, George? The quest was inside this anthill, and I had to act natural. I couldn't let them know that I just dismembered Kevin. But then I kinda kidnapped their child. Completely an accident, by the way, but I blew the entire operation. No, please. It was an accident, bro, I swear. Eventually, they did stop chasing me, but the egg timer was ticking, and there was a possibility that Carl would become a father. By the way, you can actually tame things in this game, but I didn't know that yet at the time. Anyways, I headed back inside, and luckily they already forgot about all the atrocities I've committed today. So I located some more ant eggs and more ant fathers that actually returned from the grocery store, unlike Kevin. I had to blend in, so I stole their lunch, Billy Hog Bite, what in tarnation, and participated. Apparently these are little bites of that hot dog that's been sitting outside for 3 months, but I continued to explore the anthill until I came across a tunnel which was blocked by Dwayne the Rock himself. So I hammered him and headed down into the abyss. Is that a dead guy? Unfortunately though, the dead guy wasn't the only person in here, because Kevin's grandfather showed up. He was a soldier ant, and he was the exact opposite of friendly.
Grizzled veteran of many ant wars. That's the employee Ms. Beaumont was looking for. We'll cover.
No, I was so close. Kevin's father just murdered me, and I needed to figure out a way to get past him. So I used some sprigs to make a sprig bow and 10 thistle arrows. And even though Kevin's father was strong, this time I had the element of surprise, because no combat Ant-Man would expect his murder victim to reincarnate directly outside his house. Wow, that was one of the sentences of all time. But with a sprig bow in the hands of Carl, Kevin didn't stand a chance. Oh, Kevin! And just like that, oh how the turns have tabled. Kevin's grandfather was deceased. A grave had been robbed. Carl is now a father of 8. And this treasure chest gave me a mere mycologist token. With this in your hands, your contribution to ant science are finally being recognized. It's about time. The mission was a resounding success. And on the way out, I found a giant tooth. You found a yoked girth milk molar. Slurp the vitamin-infused pulp core to grow stronger.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And I thought my script was weird. These milk molars give points to upgrade Carl's stats, and health seemed like a pretty good idea to just start out with, so I went with that for now. And on the way back home, I saw a giant spider. Spiderling Orbweaver Jr. By the way, this peep scanner thing that you just saw right there, well, you'll see more of it later, but it fills out like this Pokédex, which documents all of the creatures in the game. And I'm gonna catch them all. Anyways, when I made it back to base, I did some base stuff, and I ended off the day by studying the body parts of my victims under a microscope. But as I awoke on day 7, my game crashed. Yeah, this game's a bit buggy, both literally and metaphorically, but I still had to complete my mission. And my annoying boss was calling yet again, so I kept her waiting while I used my science degree to learn how to start a babysitting business. Oh, can I hatch the ant eggs with this? Unlocked a few other structures, and what do you want, bro? The evil science lady still wouldn't give up Burgle's head, and after discussing the details of our mission,
I still don't know. Please ask less often.
it was worth a try. But something good did still come out of that, because I was able to build a hatchery. I just needed some weed stems and acorns. And I kinda need to hurry, because these dudes are about to hatch. So I set out to find an acorn, but instead I found a pine cone, which requires level 3 of your Omni tool. And then what happened next? I found yet another degenerate. Hello there. The orb weaver was craving some Carl for breakfast. I tried to run, but the dude chased me to the ends of the earth. Well, actually, it was like 20 centimeters, but it was a very stressful 20 centimeters, okay? I had no choice but to fight back. And the very first hit, my hammer broke. What? I got sent to the Shadow Realm, but after my reincarnation, I was finding pretty much everything but acorns. Why are there no acorns here, bro? And after I slayed a spiderling and impaled Kevin's brother because I wanted his donut chunk, I got decimated again. Anyways, it took a while, but after soul searching for way longer than I'm willing to admit, I found the acorn. Guys, it was like right next to my house. Why am I like this? I now needed one more acorn, so I continued on when I found one of my neighbors stuck in a spider web.
No. Wait.
So I decided to help him out and freed him from his meaningless existence. Look, man, I was hungry, okay? Anyways, I found 2 more acorns right next to that spider web, and I found some more weed nearby. But you actually need 6 of these weed stems to build a hatchery, and you're only allowed to carry 5 at a time. Something ain't adding up. So I made this pallet thing to store my weed. Okay, that sounded very different than it was supposed to. And I finally crafted the hatchery. Apparently, the egg recipe inside of Carl's brain is actually for a soldier ant, which sounds pretty good. But all of the eggs that I kidnapped yesterday are for worker ants. I can't hatch those. So I spent the rest of the day doing some base stuff. And it was time for Carl to get some beauty sleep, because tomorrow, we're kidnapping Kevin. So on day 8, I dug up my neighbor, but he was kinda ugly, so I forced my spear through his kidney and turned him into a canteen. I also made these ant claw things, which are like the bug version of brass knuckles, and an acorn mask that makes me look kind of scary, but provides way more armor than the clover stuff.
I can feel my cells rehydrating.
Anyways, I can now use this grub canteen to store water droplets for later. And the next location that the evil computer lady wanted me to visit was another anthill. But this one was a lot more dangerous than the first, and I think it has a soldier ant egg inside. So after admiring their 4 monitor setup, I slayed a very well-respected member of their community. Had to eliminate a couple witnesses after that one. But as I entered the tunnels, Kevin's military ancestors began to multiply. This man was absolutely relentless, and once his indentured servants began to join in, I didn't stand a chance. I barely managed to make it out of there with Carl's life, but after some grub-related activities, I managed to become healthy again, and I headed back down to get my revenge. But this time I went left instead of right, and the company has definitely already been here. And there was another degenerate with military experience, so I lodged 6 thistles into his retina, harvested his organs, and honestly, it was going pretty well. Before I knew it, I was already at the lab, and all of the eggs here were regular ant ones, but I did manage to find some granola bars. Big profit. The anthill was massive, confusing, and powered by 9-volt batteries. But I continued on, slaying heathens along the way, until eventually I came across an abandoned research bunker. Oh, what's in here? I stole all of their granola bars, filled my grub's skin with water, and this exact moment was the first time that I actually opened the Pokédex. It shows every single creature that I've scanned along with their strengths and weaknesses, but I wanted to complete 100% of this game, which means filling out all of these collections, completing all of the ranger quests, and of course, saving a robot man named Burgle. Anyways, it was getting late, so I spent the night inside a house that I just robbed, and on day 9, I went deeper into the hive. This time, I actually scanned my victim before removing his torso. But as I headed down, I learned that the researchers have moved all of the soldier ant eggs. I had to go deeper. I find it kind of overpowered how I can just unload 10 arrows into a civilian, and then after he's passed, God rest his soul, I can just pick the arrows back up. Unlimited murder glitch. As you can probably tell, everything seemed pretty easy, and I was getting comfortable. Maybe a bit too comfortable, because then this happened. What is that? That was in fact an orc weaver, allegedly. But this man was an absolute tank. Luckily I had my arrows and I was able to keep running backwards while unloading them into all 8 of his kneecaps. And I even managed to get a cheeky scan in it. But eventually, I found myself at the lab, and I thought I was cornered. But despite this man having 8 entire arms, for comparison, I only have 2. He was physically incapable of opening the door. Wait, there's no way this works? Peekaboo. My 5,000 hours on Ark Survival Evolved are finally paying off. But just like that, Mr. Orc Weaver had fallen. Thanks for the organs. And when I made it back down to where he spawned at the first time, I found the main lab. There it is, boys. So after reading some lore on how to make a duct tape saddle, yes, but well, that's concerning. I don't think there was any way to actually grab this egg. But the path ahead revealed his mother, who was slightly upset at me for exterminating her entire family and trying to brainwash her child. So I humbly sent her on an all-expenses paid vacation to the afterlife. Apparently, you can only grab 1 egg at a time though, and it's like on my shoulder, so I can't even attack while I'm carrying it. But after opening Juztify's granola bar emporium, the rest of the colony had been alerted, and the Revolutionary War began. This little Sprigbo was absolutely carrying Carl. But near the end of the tunnel, I got kind of stuck on like a rock or something while 3 Cretans were in pursuit. I almost made it out, but I was on life support. And then, well, I missed. No! I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty disappointing, so I took my frustration out on the neighbors, and completely by accident, I managed to find the other entrance to the anthill. It was because my bag icon was like right next to it. And I didn't see really any ants when I was going down, so I thought that I was basically home free. But what I didn't account for, however, was that when I grabbed this egg, every single worker ant gets the sudden urge to murder me. This was gonna be a problem. It was now day 11, meaning it was finally time to gaslight a baby ant into thinking I'm his father. I just needed 1 acorn shell for the saddle thing, so I cracked open a cold one, and began the incubation. My future indentured servant would be old enough for manual labor in about 20 minutes. So in the meantime, I decapitated another one of my neighbors.
Each time when I come,
And it was time for science class. After a solid 2 days of ruining lives, I had accumulated 27 entire heads. So I studied those in class today, which allowed Carl's brain power to finally reach level 4. And after I curb stomped a couple more acorns to make a bigger storage box and set up this trail marker thing for one of the ranger quests, the egg was about halfway incubated at this point. And I spent the rest of day 11 farming some materials for the base to prepare for some future upgrades. On day 12, Kevin was successfully brainwashed,
Part of the colony.
and he's really good at farming stuff. But then, well, this happened.
Don't be too afraid. Not yet.
Did I just get hacked? I kind of ignored that, but then my game crashed, so maybe she really is a professional hacker. But anyways, after analyzing a grub under a microscope, I got another call from the evil lady who still won't tell me where Burgle's head is, but she did give me some new coordinates for another one of their research facilities. And before I did that, I kind of wanted to explore the map a little bit because I've just been in this starting ant area the whole time. So I made my very first level 2 weapon, which is basically just a giant club that's made from the femur leg of Kevin's nephew, and I used the remains of Kevin's other extended family members to make a helmet, some shoulder pads, and some knee pads. Bro, this is actually kind of messed up. How am I gonna be wearing all of this and just expect Kevin to not notice? Anyways, Kevin was super fast, and with upgraded armor, one of each type of weapon, a canteen, bandages, and of course, some granola bars, my confidence was at an all-time high in a man named Carl. And this ant leg hammer thing does pretty insane damage as well. Sorry you had to see that, buddy. I was starting to really accumulate resources though, and I needed another storage box to hold it all in my base. So I cracked open a couple acorns for their shells, but then an orb weaver showed up. Not like a full-grown one. This orb weaver was from Weenie Hut Juniors. But this was the perfect opportunity to put Kevin to the test. The fight was a pretty fair matchup, and they both seemed to hit for about the same damage. And I really couldn't afford to pay for Kevin's funeral right now, but that's okay, because after a few hacks and a couple slashes, Kevin reigned victorious. Okay, Kevin. But that was close. Anyways, back at base, I decided to hang Kevin's brother-in-law next to our front door. I made another storage box, and I also made an ant nest for Kevin and his non-existent friends. This is where I'd put my friends, if I had any. And at the start of day 13, it was finally time to explore. When you're 3 centimeters tall,
That is a bit above average.
this map is kind of large, and I've barely even scratched the surface. I was kind of scared to get too far away because of the different levels of degenerates everywhere, but there was an ice cream truck over there that seemed kind of promising. So I took Kevin out for some ice cream, slaying the degenerates along the way. But before I made it too far, this happened. Oh no! The scorpion was actually kind of weak. Oh, I think we got this, Kevin. But then his father showed up. We don't got this, Kevin. I turned around before that dude's father could even introduce himself. And I didn't look back until I reached Gary the Snail over in my hometown. Bro, I thought I was doing so good fighting that little one. I wasn't ready to give up just yet though. And this time, I would just have to be a bit more careful. I headed back past where I even was before, and eventually I made it over to some bricks, where I came across a, what is that? Bombardier beetle. And this trash I found near a giant cockroach. I have no doubt in my mind that that dude wants to dismember me. But apparently the end of the map is in this direction. This game is in early access, by the way. But it's only because I went south. And the northeast area is like an entire continent. It's way bigger. Anyways, after spying on a gentleman that just let one rip, is this considered biological warfare? I decided that I probably shouldn't risk fighting something that I didn't know about until I get another ant or at least something to replace Kevin, just in case he gets captated. So the plan for now was to just farm some acorns and head back where I would continue my quest. But what actually happened, well, it all started with this blue butterfly. I was on the west side of the map, and when I dropped in near this acorn, Oh, the giant desert scorpion had returned. I ran, and to be honest, I didn't even know where I was going, but I was definitely gonna get there. And a few seconds later, I found myself in this little outpost with giant army guy action figures and an 8-legged criminal in the shadows. Things were getting scary, but at least they have baseball here. Anyways, the rest of the journey consisted on some juvenile cockroaches with a very intimidating father. And running for my life. A lot of running for my life. But we made it back. And I had just enough science to unlock some more structures in the ranger station. By the way, I do plan on 100%ing this game before day 100, meaning that I need to finish every challenge in this ranger station, and I need to defeat every enemy in the game, including the final boss, and make sure I scan them all. Does that say a beetle with a big blasting booty? I'll be the judge of that. Bro, why are there so many under this orc category? Anyways, I spent the rest of day 13 doing some home renovations, and after upgrading my arsenal, it was time for the next quest.
Nothing like H2O.
On day 14, I investigated the coordinates that Sloan sent me, but apparently it was a setup. The Scorpion brothers were waiting, but this time their father was nowhere to be found. Luckily, they're pretty weak on their own, and a couple of Kevin's world-famous headbutts sent them peacefully to the afterlife. I think I'm like under a picnic table right now. But when I finally entered this cave, well, this happened. Really, bro? There was an orc Scorpion. And by the way, these guys are allegedly created by the company, like they're robot drones or something. Anyways, I did not want to deal with that man. So I was over here procrastinating, looking at a half-eaten Oreo, scanning a juvenile roach, and walking up a plastic knife. Anything to not do what I'm supposed to be doing, am I right? But on top of the picnic table was a needle-nosed miscreant. I thought that I could take the guy. I was wrong. Somehow I managed to lose the dude though, and I found myself back on top of the picnic table, where I found Mr. Caterpillar and a honeybee. Hello, sir. I wanted to see if I could fight the lanky fella, so I lodged a spear right into his left kidney, and, well...
And he stands there! Unfazed!
Honestly, I felt kind of bad because he wasn't even trying to fight back, but don't worry, the feeling passed. Caterpillar goop? I don't even want to know what Carl's gonna use that for. Anyways, there were some other things up here, like a box of oversized breath mints, but long story short, I failed at parkour. Oh no! Is Kevin dead? Kevin wasn't dead. He was just indisposed at the moment. Oh, thank God. And apparently when bugs die in this game, you can just send them back to your nest to heal up. And that does make things a lot less stressful when fighting something bigger, because I thought I was gonna have to completely get a new one. But regardless, I was now all on my lonesome, and my mortal enemy was waiting. Let's do this. You just gonna stand there? The cave entrance was too narrow for this very fat man, and I was able to just stand here unloading my entire arsenal. I truly thought that I had figured everything out, but what happened next, I was not ready, bro. Where did he go? Carl got deleted. Kevin, how could you leave me like this? Things were not going well, but it was time to regroup and come up with a better plan. Apparently, Mr. Scorpion is resistant to slashing, meaning that like swords and stuff will do less damage. But his weak points include his stinger and that massive dump truck. So with the newfound information, I set out. But on the way, I found the remains of someone playing Dungeons and Donuts. There was a degenerate here, of course, but there was also a ladybug. And even though he dismembered me during our last encounter, I remember him being really slow. So with a bow now, I can probably take him. Kevin, stay.
You have to give young ones some independence.
I was gonna give it a shot, so I pulled out the Glock and launched one dose of death directly into his eye socket. That man was angry, but luckily he moved slower than my grandma, if she forgot how to walk. And it took a while, but 25 invitations to the afterlife later. Oh, you gotta be quicker than that. The lady in the red dress had fallen, and it was kind of disgusting. But after grabbing some raw science
You can touch.
I made it back where I died earlier, and I discovered that this giant, scary cockroach dude is actually not going to kill me on sight. But this man has 0 weaknesses, and he can't even be poisoned. But the real standout trait here, he's immune to spicy food. Anyways, back inside the cave, I was expecting to find my bag and a giant scorpion, but neither one of those things were here. My bag, for one, was completely under the map, and I don't know about the scorpion, but I think he's under there as well. Anyways, inside the cave was another yoked girth milk molar. and this optical disc, which resulted in a scary woman threatening Carl's life.
I'll be sending you a test. A little violent test.
Curious figure. I don't know what she's planning, but I'll prepare for war.
And on day 16, after analyzing another one of my victims under a microscope, the optical disc unlocked some new recipes in the ranger station. They were all focused on self-defense, including the spike traps and a literal acorn turret. Oh, wait a minute. When they said I have to prepare for war, they actually meant that. This was kind of scary, and I honestly had no idea what to expect from it. But after Carl ate an entire box of nachos in one bite, I refilled my canteen, and I set up 3 spike strips on every path into my base. I had the strip part down, but the spiky parts are like made out of thistles, and I used all of my thistles on arrows. And I'm gonna be completely honest here, I have no idea where I got the original thistles from, and I was kind of just running around aimlessly hoping to find a spiky boy. Why, hello, sir. Goodbye, sir. But long story short, it took significantly longer than I would like to admit.
No! Get home safe.
But 15 minutes later, I located thy thistle. They grow on these pink flower things with spiky leaves. And yes, this is right next to my base. And I basically just did parkour while grabbing more needles than a drug addict. Whoa, I'm like on top of everything. Is that a hot dog stand? Moist and hot.
I am a victim of a hate crime. Stanley knows what I'm talking about.
That's not what a hate crime is.
Well, I hated it.
I had like 50 thistle needles. I built 2 of the spike strip things, thinking that I would still have some time after that to prepare. But the exact second that Carl put the thistle into that spike strip, this happened.
So you haven't forgotten everything you learned in the yard? Let's see how good you really are.
I was not ready.
Waiting it around. Finally, let's get my bug out.
Disappointing. You'll need practice if you ever want to see your robot pal again.
So that happened. But it was now day 17, and my stuff was still under the map from Mr. Scorpion. Yes, I ran all the way over here just to check. But anyways, the evil lady threatened to assault me again with her army of robot bug things. And the timer was now ticking. I really wanted to build a turret for this, but it takes resources that I do not possess. I'm inferior. Carl needed to act fast, so he used what was left of his brain, and the plan was to build a tower where the orc mafia cannot impale me. It drained most of my resources, but it was surprisingly easy. I was kind of expecting the top part to need a support, but it's just breaking the law of gravity. I still had some time before the assault though, so I forced Kevin to do some manual labor. Placed down a couple more spike strips, made a lifetime supply of arrows, and I really wanted to make this upgraded spider bow as well. But for that one, I need another set of Mr. Orb Weaver's pearly whites. There was one thing that would really help me out though, and it was this little tiny nifty needle charm. It says that it boosts the damage of arrows, and spoiler alert, it ain't lying. So I headed to my backyard puddle to harvest the fuzz of some civilians, became dehydrated.
I am desiccating at an incredible pace.
And constructed a very nifty needle. This thing replaced my trinket slot, so I did lose the Myrmecologist token that does more damage to ants, but trust me, it was worth it. And after I refilled my canteen, it was already time.
Are you ready yet? I'm getting impatient.
Good luck down there, Kevin. The DoorDash delivery included 2 orc soldier ants, an orc orb weaver, and the orb weaver's child. Children in the army is kind of despicable, I'm not gonna lie. But with this nifty needle, my bow shots were hitting harder than Mike Tyson. And from the safety of my tower, I even had time for a lunch break. Kevin was being tortured, of course, but that was a sacrifice that I was humbly willing to make. And honestly, it was super easy.
Finally, let's get my bug out of trouble.
So you passed my little test then. Good.
But I definitely needed to be prepared because if they ever send me flyers, this strategy is not gonna work. Anyways, it was way past Carl's bedtime. So after analyzing this orc remote control thing, this is when I found out that they were robots, by the way. Day 18 began, and I needed to tell the lady about the other lady. But as soon as I told her what happened, the chick started gossiping about someone from high school. Dude, I don't care. I'm here to save Burgle. But we came up with a new way to hack in and get some revenge.
I like how you think.
but it was gonna require some setups after hacking all of the different transmitter nodes around the map. Each one of these has an army waiting. Before I could do anything though, I really wanted to upgrade to the Orb Weaver spider bow. So I queued up some web string stuff in my spinner and I set out, vandalizing all of Mr. Orb Weaver's rental properties. The vandalization worked and I got his attention, but now the fine gentleman wanted to murder me. So I ordered Kevin to remove his legs. But once again, I didn't get any spider teeth. So I decapitated his spider buddy. Oh, that was close. But he didn't have any teeth either. Anyways, I was right next to the picnic table, which had another yoked girth milk bowler, by the way. And from all the way up here, I could see the two locations of the transmitters for the quest. One of them was in the trash can over there, and the other one is on that giant green picnic table. Looks like they got some champagne over there too. I should get Kevin drunk. All I wanted was one Orb Weaver fang for the bow, but the next one that I found literally vanished off the face of the earth. Where'd he go? Yeah, good times. So I spent the rest of day 18 and most of day 19 locating Orb Weavers, but I didn't get a single fang. Bro, Kevin, I'll leave you unattended for 3 seconds and get KO'd. So I collected some webs from my spinner, looked at them very closely, and to prepare for the big day tomorrow, Carl got his full 8 hours of sleep. Because it was now day 20, and I kind of realized that I've been fighting junior Orb Weavers and not their much larger brothers. Oh, only the fat ones have teeth. So after spending a little bit of time grinding resources, but I wasn't exactly sure where to get flower petals for the turrets. Oh, what the? But I spent a decent part of day 20 just exploring, where I found a sleeping beauty and raided the homes of several spider families, but for some reason, every single Orb Weaver that I found around the world was from Weenie Hut Juniors. Bro's getting gassed right now. It's probably because I need to explore further away from my base. And speaking of my base, there was a baby snail trespassing on my property. I told that young man to get off my lawn, but the dude had no sense of urgency. So I launched a thistle arrow into his skull, which gave him a concussion. And I had just enough time to hit 2 more arrows before he went back into his shell, and I thought these guys were basically just going to be a DPS race to kill them before they can go in their shell, right? But apparently, if I get far enough away, the dude comes back out. Oh, he came out. Get wrecked. Okay, now I actually feel kind of bad, bro. His shell required a level 3 Omni tool to farm. But anyways, I spent the rest of day 20 sending Kevin to the mines, which allowed me to add a dew collector, a garden plot, a smoothie station, a smithing station, and an acorn turret. The smoothie station lets you craft some pretty cool concoctions. And the crop plot, well, I don't know how to use that one yet. But it was now day 21, and it was time to intercept the first orc transmitter. So I slurped up some dew from my collector, beat up my lunch, and I was about to set out when this happened. Oh, come on, bro. Carl was so scared that my game crashed. But I had roughly 1 day before the raid hit my base. And after roasting some gnat for dinner, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna go anyway.
So sticky!
Pause. The transmitter was located on top of a trash can. But here's the problem. The trash can, it stinks. There was rotting apples and non-perishable hot dogs everywhere. But the roaches absolutely loved it. Carl, not so much.
This is unbreathable.
I'm pretty sure that you can actually get up there by climbing the trash on the outside, but the moment that this foul stench enters Carl's nostril, he almost perished on the spot. This clearly wasn't gonna work. And something else that wasn't gonna work was attempting murder on this Orb Weaver. Yeah, I found her, by the way. I thought that I would be fine up on this cliff, but clearly I was mistaken. And to make matters worse, I accidentally broke Kevin's kneecaps. Long story short, I was removed from the premises. But when I reincarnated inside my living room, I found a better spot to actually attack from. This location does a really good job of showcasing all 3 of his brain cells. But the amount of health that this cretin possessed was astronomical. And in the end, it didn't even matter. Because once again, he was toothless. Really, bro? I'm gonna start going through y'all's dental records. Anyways, back on the subject of rotten hot dogs, I actually found this recipe for a gas mask using a weevil's face as the mask. Give me that face, boy. So my new goal was to borrow some glands from a stink bug to actually make this thing. And since I had like 15 entire torsos from Orb Weavers at this point, I decided to make them all into a shirt for some extra armor. And I slayed some gnats.
Obliterated.
to make these grub goggles, which are supposed to be really good for ranged attacks. Bro's built like Mort. But the raid went down that night, and I was back just in time for the start. This time, they were not messing around, and the evil lady sent me a full-grown man, along with like 4 other goons. But the tower strat that I had going was actually super OP. And while I was taking on the Weaver of Orbs, Kevin was 1v1ing his evil twin brother in the distance. At one point, the man created an entire web that made a ramp up to my tower, and I thought for sure he was gonna come up here and teach me a lesson, but he never did. And we reigned victorious. That was a lot harder than last time though, and if they send in some mosquitoes or anything else that can fly, I'm probably done for. So on day 23, after looking at Goo very closely, and finally upgrading my bow to the spider age, it was time to pay a visit to the picnic table transmitter. I've never ventured this far away from my hometown before, and I honestly don't think I would have even made it if it wasn't for Kevin's peak athleticism, because that man ran like 4 back-to-back 100-centimeter marathons that day. But anyways, I was venturing into enemy territory, and I needed to be very careful. So after I said hello to a butterfly...
Wow, that's a, Actually, I'm unfamiliar with this genus of blue butterfly.
I found myself right next to Billy's hot dog stand, where allegedly the dogs are moist and hot.
Brother,
There were some giant trash bags piling up here that Billy really needs to dispose of. So for what happened next, I 100% blame Billy. Oh! Anyways, this place had so many new things, and I even found the blue flower petals that I needed for the acorn turret. Oh, nice. But there I was, directly below the picnic table, and not really sure the best way to climb up. At first, I just kind of thought maybe I would build the world's tallest ramp or something. Wait, no. It would technically be the world's smallest ramp, wouldn't it? But before I committed to anything, I checked out everything here, including some bottles of pop, an anthill, there's some angry guys down there, the remnants of Billy's hogs, and this giant tablecloth hanging down with a spider web ramp. What is that?
Another one for
Orc
the companion.
Weevil. Oh, there's gonna be a ton of orcs up there, huh? But the tablecloth was very conveniently positioned as a ramp up to the top. I basically just had to climb up the thing, dismembering a bunch of weevils that changed teams along the way. But a few minutes later, I made it. That was suspiciously easy. I was on the seat of the tablecloth, almost to the top, where I found some nectar, some flower petals, and a lint clump. I already know Carl's about to use that to construct like a rocket ship or something. But after fighting Spider-Man Jr. to the death, while simultaneously picking flowers and meeting the lead singer from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, he was very spicy, I entered the dark side, where Kevin found himself face to face with a full-grown orb weaver. And Kevin's not surviving that, so instead we climbed up the dude's luxury web ramp, snuck around onto the high ground behind him, and proceeded to launch 30 entire thistle arrows directly into his esophagus. He learned what death was that day. Anyways, this croquet mallet bridge, these things are called mallets, right, led me over to the other side, where a family of roaches was living rent-free. But the moment that Kevin's pinky toe touched a morsel of ice from this ice cooler, this happened.
This is not
What? Apparently, Kevin is banned from going to Hypothermia Land. Okay, it's just a cooler, but Hypothermia Land sounds way cooler. Anyways, I can't really stay in here myself because it'd be kind of chilly. And without being able to go in there, this is the highest I can go. My only 2 options to go higher were to either bring some grass planks up and make a ramp, or go through the cooler, which I think actually does work. But either way, I can't do that without Kevin right now. At least the view is nice. Oh, I definitely got to check that out. Wait, is that a statue of Burgle? Anyways, I had to go back down to get Kevin and to get some grass planks to make a ramp, because at the time I didn't realize that parachutes existed. But as day 24 came to an end, I was grounded yet again. And after stealing a dead guy's granola bar, thank you, kind sir, it was already past Carl's bedtime of 7 p.m. on a school night. So I farmed some clover and sprigs to make a backup bed for the night. And on day 25, I wanted to re-summon Kevin, but I couldn't figure out how. I was over here pressing every button on my controller, and some that weren't on my controller.
What do you mean by that?
But the only thing that happened was me accidentally angering an entire colony of war veterans. But a few minutes later, I figured it out. It was just holding right on the D-pad. What? Dude, I tried that. Kevin's response time was faster than the police in the mean streets of Los Santos. 12 seconds?
Could I get a ride?
But with Kevin's assistance, I was able to farm some grass planks and some weed. for a ramp. It was time to build up to that transmitter. But then I saw this. What is
counts as
that?
research.
A wolf spider? Oh, nah, bro. And to make matters worse, the northern scorpion that lives in Billy's moist and hot trash bags was about to make a guest appearance. I thought they were about to team up and tag team Carl, but apparently they had some beef that we don't know about. I was already on my second bag of popcorn at this point, witnessing some live action Mortal Kombat gameplay. That man just got obliterated. And while the wolf spider was busy celebrating his victory, I managed to sneak down and harvest the scorpion's remains. I don't know what those are used for yet, but after a few more minutes of table climbing, I was back up top. But apparently up here, it doesn't let you place structures. I thought that I was just gonna have to head back and prepare for the harsh climates of hypothermia land. But I actually managed to finesse my way onto the top of the tablecloth over here. And after slaying an orb weaver from Weenie Hut Juniors,
Specimen dispatch.
I made it. The transmitter was being guarded by a mind-controlled robot ladybug. And these guys are super tanky, but they're also super slow. So I just climbed on top of a hot dog tray and began his death. Stopped a second for a lunch break and watched as Kevin finished that man off. For some reason, he had 5 ladybug parts, which sounds really weird saying out loud for some reason. But I lost a bunch of arrows from that because they kind of got stuck down here under the hot dog tray. But anyways, I was super worried about hacking this transmitter because I was picturing the 7-nation army all spawning right next to me and a robotic civil war breaking out. But I hacked it, and we were good. The ladybug was the only guardian here, and the signal actually pointed me to the army of orc soldiers, which is down there by the pines. A huge war was about to go down, but it wasn't right now, which is good. I have way too much in my inventory right now, and I was also running super low on ammo. So I decided to make a trip back to base and not risk it. But then I got hungry, and I wasn't exactly paying much attention. That weevil was raw, wasn't it? Good times. I spent like half of day 26 sprinting across the universe to grab my bag. And by the way, I just realized that these dandelions can be used as parachutes. But anyways, I analyzed the flower petals and Mr. Scorpion's corpse under my microscope, finished construction on the turret, made a new storage box, cooked up some lunch, and checked out my brand new recipes. Apparently this flashbang is made from a sausage bomb. Okay then. But it says that it can stun the orc soldiers, which is amazing. There was also an ice staff made from scorpion organs and breath mints. Bro, what am I playing? Harry Potter?
You're a wizard, Harry.
And some ammo for this acorn turret, which can apparently ground flyers. I really need that. But what I also really needed was in this smithing station. I just have to, you know, build it. Anyways, there's a war waiting for me over by the picnic table in the pines. And I was still low on ammo. So after farming a lifetime supply of thistles and lacing them onto some microscopic arrows, I packed some lunches for the road. And at this point, all I wanted to do was get my 8 hours of sleep because I had a big day tomorrow. But the evil bug lady had a big day tomorrow too, and she had some other plans. Dude, can you not? I hadn't made any ammo for my turret yet, and this time was the hardest one yet. What is that? Wait, that was my arrow? Bro, I need to become a beta tester or something because I'd be finding every glitch possible. Anyways, it was now day 27, and the events of last night were a bit concerning. It's really easy when you can just sit in a tower and cheese everything, but if they don't allow me to build inside these transmitter fighting areas, something like that would have been extremely difficult. So after upgrading my pantalones to some grub leggings, which allegedly provide bonus armor to archers, I realized that I need the more advanced resources for most of the better upgrades, and for the level 2 Omni tool, I need to find some blueberry and lingonberry chunks. And I also need to slay this disgusting disgusting specimen, but I'll figure that out later, because after eating an entire roast gnat in one bite, it was time for Carl and Kevin to head to the pines, and join the military. But on the way, I discovered that Kevin has an unrecognized talent. He can recruit the worker ants. It puts like this little ring thing around their head, and then they just fight whoever Kevin tells them to. Bro put all his points into charisma. But after traveling across the universe, we arrived, and there was another ranger outpost here. Ooh. The inside was a bit different than the others though, because not only was Kevin's nephew being held hostage, tied up on a table, but this could be another respawn point in case the fight doesn't go so well. There was also a whole new area at the back, covered in the purple goo stuff from the orcs, and some gifts inside this loot crate. Pine needles, lingonberry chunks, sticky liquid rage. Sounds fun. I also stole some brittle quartz shards from this table, which are used to customize the looks of my tools and stuff. But that was enough messing around for now, because it was time for war. So after looking at some lingonberries very closely, Carl, Kevin, and his brainwashed apprentice continued on. Oh no. I was kind of trying to scout it out to see how many soldiers were here, but apparently we were being watched.
Hey, I can see you sneaking around, so here's a friendly warning. Do not mess with my soldiers, and do not touch my stuff. Stashing those milk molars for a reason.
Oh, I didn't even notice those until you pointed it out. As far as I could tell, there wasn't any other orc soldiers here besides the full-grown orc weaver man. But over by this juice box, I found a stinky fella. These guys drop materials I need for a gas mask, which doesn't even make sense to be honest, because they're the ones that are causing the gas. It's like saying I'm gonna use a flamethrower to put out a fire. But they're also under the angry category, meaning this man is not messing around. So I trained Kevin in parkour to jump on top of a mushroom, told him to stay, Kevin, stay. Launched a thistle arrow into that man's radioactive booty, and prayed to the aroma gods that it wouldn't reach Carl's nostrils all the way up here. It seemed like we were okay, but Kevin's apprentice, on the other hand, bro was not having a good time. Anyways, the dude had a ton of health, but nothing that 20 projectiles into that dangly thing in the back of his throat can't fix. That was easy. He dropped everything that I needed for the gas mask. And with that out of the way, it was now time to declare war on an 8-legged orc. The Orc Weaver was super low health, and after reviving the useless members of our battalion, he was one hit away, and I thought that he still was. But then I noticed. What? Bro, he just fully healed in like 10 seconds. I think I might have kited the guy too far away from his spawn or something. I don't know, but what I did know is that this man Kevin keeps getting destroyed. I've seen plastic bags go further in life than you. So I ran away to reset everything, paid my respects to Kevin's apprentice, absolutely downed some sticky liquid rage and a green machine, and helped Kevin with his problem of falling and not being able to get up. Because now it was time for round 2. And just like that, the Orc Weaver was down. And after executing his brother-in-law that happens to work at Weenie Hut Jr.'s, it seems that we've made the hacker lady a bit upset.
Do not mess with my army or the treasures they guard.
She told me not to loot her giant yoked girth milk molars, but to be honest, that just made me want to loot them even more. So I absorbed them into Carl's body, analyzed some organic gas chambers under a microscope, put another milk molar level into Carl's health, and now I was just kinda stranded here. Kevin was in the afterlife, and it was way past Carl's bedtime. Times like this, it would probably be a good idea to have a few more soldier ants for backup. Wait, can I use more than one at the same time? I definitely wanted to try making a platoon of Kevins. So after finding some shelter for a good night's sleep, day 28 began. I spent the morning checking out the ranger quests, but most of them require me to kill things I haven't even discovered yet or craft things that I haven't found yet. So after calling an Uber,
I'm ready for pickup.
I spent most of day 28 exploring the area.
Oh, my steed. Now it needs help.
Finding some new resources, and climbing a tree root up to the pines, where I came face to beak with a flying sociopath. Dude, even in video games, I hate mosquitoes. But anyways, after Kevin backstabbed Jabba the Hutt, I found a sleepy boy, and I was crossing the bridge to grab some more raw science when I saw this. Oh, a praying mantis.
This counts as research.
Praying mantis nymph? They get bigger than that? Apparently, these guys are angry, meaning they want to decapitate me. And their weakness is being stabbed in the eye socket. Yeah, I think that's my weakness too, bro. So I decided to stay away from that. Hello, sir. And I continued exploring the northwest corner of the map, grabbing as many of the new resources that I could find, until eventually, on the other side of a cave tunnel thing, I got a perfectly clear view of the barbecue that Carl wasn't invited to. I really wanted to explore that, but mainly the statue of Burgle and Bill Nye the Science Guy over there. But due to that mantis nymph from earlier, which, by the way, I had to Google this to confirm, but the females literally decapitate their husbands. So it says here that eating the male provides the female with essential nutrients. Okay, fair enough, you want to be a cannibal, but look at this next part. In some cases, decapitation by the female can actually disinhibit the male, allowing him to continue mating even without his head. I have no comment for that. Anyways, that wasn't the only issue, because there was also this guy. Carl's life was clearly in danger, and I think I'll be leaving now. But over to the south, I discovered the spider-infested anthill, and I'm definitely not going in there right now, but after finding someone's long-lost eyeglasses and discovering that pine needles need a level 2 Omni tool to farm, I headed back to my somewhat humble abode, cooked up some dinner, made the quartz and marble that I just found into some plating to finish the smithy, and apparently this thing is used to upgrade weapons and armor. And I actually had a ranger quest for that, so I decided to use the plates on my orb weaver bow. And with these pine needles, the only thing I need to make an ice staff, yes, I just said an ice staff, is some breath mints, which require the level 2 Omni hammer. So I spent the rest of the day doing some chores around base, and on day 29, it was time to prepare for the next transmit. So I crafted a gas mask from the skull of my mortal enemy, and I made a clover hood and a weevil shield that I'll never use to knock out a couple of the ranger quests that I missed earlier. I also spent like 5 minutes searching the entire tri-state area for another weevil. Bro had 2 noses. To craft some ant bait and an acorn plate for 2 more ranger quests. And at this point, I was pretty much caught up there, except for the getting perfect blocks, because I basically only use ranged weapons. But I was already running out of storage again, so I made another storage box, trashed a bunch of my old gear, and I made a grinder, which allows me to turn grass planks into plant fiber instead of picking it all by hand. But I was super far away from pretty much everything, and at some point, I wanted to make a better base in a better location. I also had the idea of making these stuffed bug statue things, like making a museum or a zoo and then building every single creature in the game to just show off all of them. Anyways, I spent the rest of the day giving a purpose to the lowlifes of our society. Thank you for your service. And crafting a few green machine smoothies since they're pretty cheap. I also made these spider fang daggers for ranger quests, tested them out on Kevin's apprentice, and proceeded to get the best sleep of my life, right next to the remains of Kevin's apprentice. But it was now day 30, and after packing some lunch for the road, I headed back to the hatchery anthill to steal another soldier egg, or 2, or 20, because I did really need a backup for when Kevin dies, but if I can spawn them all in at the same time, I also might be able to make an army. Anyways, it was much easier this time because the soldier ants think Kevin is one of them, and they don't directly try to murder. But even though the ants weren't trying to kill me, someone else was.
My troops will pay you a visit. I hope you'll put up a fight.
It seems the evil hacker lady was back in business, and she wanted revenge on Carl for stealing her milk molars. But she's gonna have to wait, because now that I had Kevin, I could easily access the back areas through the roots. And when I finally made it to the bottom of the nest, down by the eggs, Kevin could actually carry a soldier ant egg on his own, while I carried a separate one on foot. But getting both of these eggs out at the exact same time, it was pretty annoying. I had to keep dropping the egg every single time someone had beef. And I also had to do this 100% on foot. But anyways, I continued on, committing acts of war along the way, until every single one of Kevin's family members had been physically, emotionally, spiritually, theoretically, voluntarily, involuntarily, and existentially assaulted. We reached the exit, and it wasn't long until we made it home. The egg would take half a day to hatch, and I was thinking of names for our newest member of the family when I realized something. Wait, where's Kevin? Kevin was somehow stuck inside an orb weaver's web. Bro, how do you let this happen?
specimen.
And I had to put his egg inside my bedroom for later because the hatchery can only fit one at a time. But the next hacker lady attack was scheduled for tonight, and I wasn't prepared. Luckily, I had some acid glands now from the hive, and just enough pebbles for 25 acorn turret ammo. So I made that, moved the turret onto my tilted tower, and I made sure that it could aim down low enough and I could actually exit without falling off the face of the earth. I really hope this is enough.
It melts right off the exoskeleton.
This should toughen you up.
As soon as the attack began, 3 brainwashed honeybees tried to end Carl's career. But luckily I was able to use the turret to snipe them out of the air, and it was actually really easy.
Congratulations. Next time will be harder.
Is that all of them? Those honeybees did a ton of damage to my structures though, and I think it's about time to set up a second base with some better defenses. Anyways, Carl didn't get any sleep last night because the game was like glitched out and it kept saying that I was in combat when I actually wasn't. I don't really know what the problem was, but when I ran all the way over to the picnic area, decimated a couple of heathens, and came back, everything seemed to be working again. Anyways, the egg was ready to hatch, so I did that, threw the second one in there, and I decided to name him Kayvon. Unfortunately though, as I suspected, Kevin and Kayvon are not allowed to be active at the same time. So I won't be having any soldier ant armies or anything like that, but I did just now figure out that this man can pick up objects with his pinchers and then yeet them across the map. But having multiple of the soldier ants does allow me to keep rotating them out when they die. So with that, I was ready to take on the second orc transmitter right after I verified one more thing. So check this out. The picnic table area was super flat. It has Oreo cookies, attracts Jabba the Hutt, and has these breath mints which require a level 2 Omni tool. These breath mints are used to craft the ice staff, which I really wanted. Pollen arrows? But something that I just now thought about and I haven't really considered before was that this giant flat picnic table, well, first of all, I can feed Oreos to Jabba the Hutt, which is a W. But also, this might be an amazing super flat base location. I just needed to get everything moved over, but I'll do that later. So back at base, I studied the microbiology of the common Oreo cookie, did some chores around base, and put on a mask that was made from the face of my mortal enemy. It's time for the trash can transmitter. So Carl and Kevin set out, harvesting acorns along the way until we came across another bombardier beetle. And with Kayvon as a backup, I was feeling a bit more confident. Let's see if we can take this guy. This bombardier man was slower than Carl's level 1 brain, which made it pretty easy to get a few hits in, dodge his splooge, and repeat the process. Eventually he did manage to hit me though, which started sizzling Carl's internal organs. And Kevin took some serious damage along the way, but overall, it wasn't too bad. But after harvesting his body parts, I needed to find a way up that trash can. And over by this acorn, there was this little tree branch that led up to a styrofoam cup, a rotten banana, Billy's moist and hot, and then a dead end. Where do I go now? But when I turned around, there was a plastic spoon going up the other way. And after subjecting Carl to a day full of parkour, I made it to a stick. This is terrifying. I was really worried that I was gonna fall, because skydiving without a parachute is really fun, but you can only do it once. I speak from experience. All 6 of Kevin's kneecaps were absolutely decimated, but somehow he broke the fall and Carl survived. It was already getting late though, so I was about to go ahead and sleep for the night when this happened. Wait, what is that? I headed back to base because I forgot to bring materials to craft a bed for respawning up top, but as soon as Carl's microscopic head hit the hay, my game crashed. But on day 34, my third born child was birthed into this world. So we now had Kevin, Kayvon, and Bartholomew, the 27th. Anyways, we're gonna pretend that I definitely did not fall to my death, and we're also gonna pretend that I didn't accidentally pause my recording for over 10 minutes. So yeah, I had my recording paused, but I did the entire transmitter. So that's why Carl himself is starring in a live action reenactment of events. So what happened was, Carl walked on this trash can on foot, which made it way easier to get up to the rope from the side. And once I arrived, I summoned Bartholomew the 27th, who had a sub 1 second response time. And when I was here, well, 2 things. First of all, this area is incredibly toxic and the gas mask breaks super fast. But there was also a giant auric stink bug. I've already slayed him, but here's a visual representation. Bartholomew and Carl came across a stinky boy who proceeded to let one rip. Bartholomew's nostrils disintegrated on the spot, but Carl was ready, launching 20 arrows into his foul-smelling kidney disarming his bowel movements. Yeah, basically I killed him and then I hacked the transmitter. The entire thing broke my gas mask, and the new goal was to find the orc army at the pond, which is over there in the distance. But since I was all the way back up here again for the reenactment, I decided to try and fight these roach nymphs, because their father wasn't around. And with Bartholomew as a distraction, it was honestly pretty easy. I decided to test out these Orb Weaver Fang daggers that I made for the Ranger quest, and bro, these things are amazing. I feel like I'm playing Assassin's Creed or something. Anyways, at this point, my gas mask was on life support, and it was time to leave. So I jumped off a trash can that was built like Mount Everest, pulled out the dandelion parachute, and admired the view. Everything looks so different from above, and I could see the entire park from up here. But anyways, somehow Kevin was following us as well, and I don't know how that happened. I think I might have glitched it out, but I had 2 ants out at the same time, so I took the opportunity to assemble the bomb squad. Ow! Sliced up an Orb Weaver Jr. using his father's teeth as daggers. And back at base, I had 10 entire roach chunks, which I looked at very closely. The roach chunks are needed for the level 2 Omniac, but I still need blueberries for that as well, and lingonberries for the Omni Hammer. So on day 35, I set out for the pond. It was a long journey, and after finding a poor soul in this giant shoe and stealing his caterpillar jerky, well, I think I found the berries.
Whoa, hey, stop right there! Those berries are mine! Mine!
We'll see about that.
And stay the hell away from my soldiers. They're on guard duty.
This fight was gonna be pretty difficult, but the bug index says that bees are weak to being stabbed inside their retinas. I don't know why you wouldn't be, but it sounded like a good idea. So I decided to go for it. Let's fight. Oh, that's not gonna work. These dudes hit hard, but luckily I had some granola bars to heal up and some smoothies to buff my damage. But there was a mosquito here too for some reason, and it didn't take long for both Kevin and his brother Kayvon to get incapacitated by black and yellow heathens. And a few seconds later, well, Carl got skewered. Kevin and Kayvon were busy recovering inside their penthouse. So I summoned Bartholomew, but I wasn't exactly sure what to do. I needed to take down these bees, and in the meantime, I began sniping blueberries out of spite simply because the hacker lady told me not to. But long story short, well, I got a bit too close. Bartholomew perished, and after I revived him, yeah, that brother gone. But I finally managed to split the bees apart. And now that I had a 1v1, I might actually be able to dodge their attacks and take them down. It was definitely more difficult than I initially expected, mainly because their attack is kind of delayed. And then whenever they do actually rush you, they just keep coming even after you swerve all of their honey-like mantis. And it honestly wouldn't be that bad, you know, if I could hit a shot. But the bees can basically one-shot Carl. And at this point, I basically thought I was done for. But somehow, some miracle, I managed to find this little magazine thing, and I crouched under it and cowered in fear. Wait, no way. And somehow, this was actually working. Despite me not being able to see anything other than Carl's undersized noggin, the bee couldn't reach me in here, and it was actually perfect. And after a few technical difficulties, well, I made someone very upset.
I asked you not to do that! What is wrong with you?
But the hacker lady's emotions got the better of her. And what she revealed next, ladies and gentlemen, I think we might be able to find Burgle's head.
Ma'am, please, release Burgle's head. It's not too late to make amends.
If you want your friend's head, come try to take it from me. Those freaks at Ominent built their network center inside the statue of Wendell and Burgle. You better toughen up before coming here. You won't even survive the first floor.
But the fact that she specifically said, I won't get past the first wave, I'm not gonna lie, that makes me kind of scared. It sounds like there's something huge waiting for me at the statue. But I had to go to save Burgle. And while I was over here, I also found another ranger outpost next to this ice cream cart, but it had a squadron of orc scorpions, and I don't really have time for that. So back at base, well, we had another problem.
I really hope you're preparing for my test. It'd be so boring if you die right away.
And this time, she brought an orc butterfly. I'm not really sure how strong the butterfly would have been, but with the turret, that man no longer exists. And everything else was just land creatures, so it was pretty easy. Anyways, it was now day 37, and after my morning science lecture, I had a ton of new things I could craft, but first, it was time for a phone call. Carl was a bit concerned over the legality of hacking into microscopic transmitters.
We have so many lawyers on retainer.
And I also informed her that the evil hacker lady invited me to her evil hacker lair, which is allegedly very modern and trendy.
You will love it, by the way. Our interior designer really likes gray.
But anyways, there were a few more transmitters that would allow me to disable the orc army, and I turned the blueberries into leather and finally upgraded my Omni Axe to level 2. I still needed the lingonberries for the Omni Hammer though, which is what I need for that ice staff. But when I went back outside, bro, I just realized that they destroyed like 4 of my structures. This was starting to become a problem. So the rest of day 37 consisted of me building a new dew collector, testing out my level 2 Omni Axe, and some toadstools, looking at things extremely closely, and coming up with a plan for the new base. I had the ability to make pine and thatch structures, but they were super expensive. And I also wanted to make one of every single stuffed creature in the game to assert Carl's dominance, but once again, I can't even escape inflation in a video game about bugs. Why is everything so expensive, bro? Can I just sacrifice Kevin's firstborn child instead? But with the destruction that happened last night, I made up my mind. I'm building a new base. I just needed to figure out where, and it was most likely going to be the picnic table. But for some reason, instead of getting ready for work, Kevin decided to randomly beef with a lady. Kevin, bro, what are you doing? Honestly, I should have just let her eviscerate Kevin to teach him a lesson, but instead I launched 30 arrows into her eyebrows, and when her husband showed up as well, I decided to test out their weakness, which is apparently slashing their legs. Yeah, I'd say he's pretty weak to that. Anyways, there were 2 variables that would matter for this new base. The first one was that these optical discs might unlock me some new blueprints. And the second one was that there's a ranger station by that ice cream cart. So I spent some time trying to find the optical disc that was closest to my base, but eventually I came across this toxic anthill, which looks like it has ant spray in there. And I was debating trying to make some gas masks and actually going down there, but I came back across the giant camera. And underneath the giant camera, there was an orb weaver's bedroom where I found this orb weaver egg. I made Kevin grab that thing before he even realized what day it was, and we sprinted into the night with our kidnapped unborn spiderling. I was super excited to hatch this thing, but when I made it back to the hatchery, I was informed that Carl does not have the knowledge for this. Oh, come on, man. But don't worry, you actually can hatch these. I just have to do a quest first, which you'll see more on later. So while I was here, I decided to craft this bombardier shield and a bee stinger spear, because after that bee fight, I realized that dodging everything is not gonna work. But anyways, before I built the new base, I needed to check out that ranger outpost by the ice cream cart. Oh, can I mine this? Nice. And when I arrived, there were only the little Weenie Hut Jr. Northern Scorpions, which completely eviscerated Kevin. But overall, it wasn't too bad. At first. But then, this guy showed up. And he was not from Weenie Hut Jr.
Welcome to the Salty Spittoon. How tough are you?
I had a bowl of nails for breakfast this morning.
Yes, so?
Without any milk.
Right this way. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Luckily, Billy's moist and hot dogs were extremely popular, and there was yet another tray for me to stand on while convincing this man to enter the afterlife. Bro, these larvae are so annoying. But this ranger station was different than the others. Oh, this place is huge. Because after looting their entire life savings, scoping on a micro level, and getting Carl some beauty sleep, I found some mint arrows and some heal basa, a juicy mosquito blood sac. It's basically a water balloon made by a vampire. The ranger station even had a crafting bench, and overall, I'd say it is a pretty solid location, but since I can't actually build in the ranger station, I don't know if it's good for a base. But directly to the north was the ice cream cart, which turned all of the nearby grass into Frosty the Snowman. And the frosted grass drops these little ice splinter things. Ooh. But I can't really explore hypothermia land right now because I will disintegrate. And Kevin literally just evaporates on the spot when his toenail touches a piece of shaved ice. But I did want to farm some of these ice chunks. I've wasted enough time at this point though, and after slaying some grub to repair my pants, I started exploring around the picnic area to make sure that it was a good base location. The area had basic resources everywhere, per usual, and I found this cracked rock door thing as well that requires explosives to open. Okay, I'm kind of intrigued. But the biggest factor for my base location was gonna be pine needles, because I needed those for the level 2 structures. And luckily, there were a ton of them things nearby. The nearby resources, in combination with the super flat tabletop and having Jabba the Hutt as my neighbor, it's safe to say this is a pretty good spot, and Carl's lifestyle is about to get an upgrade. The pine, thatch, and pebble structures are kind of hard to make though, but one way or another, if I don't want the evil lady raiding my base, it had to be done. So it was now time for an epic microscopic grind.
Now let's see.
It was now day 49, and Carl just revitalized. Bro, is Kevin falling under the map? Apparently, Kevin and my bag fell into the Shadow Realm. They're just under the map, and it like kind of glitched out because of that, and it won't let me summon Kevin, Cave On, or Bartholomew. I think I just broke the game. But somehow I managed to find my bag by the tutorial spawn area. That's not even where I died, by the way. But since the ants were like all glitched out, Carl decided to time travel back to before his death. Yeah, I just reloaded a random autosave. But anyways, the build wasn't finished just yet because I needed some pine needles. And by the way, I heard that the quest over by the statue is extremely difficult. Like, they got the whole mafia there difficult. So I really needed to get back on track for that, but I also needed to finish the roof and the floor, which requires this milkweed stuff. And that was the plan, to just grind milkweed all day. But as I was slowly becoming a humble milkweed farmer, I found this skateboard where some brainwashed peasants were performing a ritual underneath. This was a mixer, and I didn't know what that was at the time, but spoiler alert, this little thing triggers one of the most chaotic battles in the entire game. But you'll see that after the transmitters are all hacked. So after not knowing what a mixer was, I continued farming milkweed when I came across an orc roach. That man is terrifying. So I eviscerated his twin children and scanned that man's lifeless body. And at this point, I think more than half of the creature index was filled out.
Oh, chill out.
But apparently, this roach was guarding the fire pit ranger station. And for what happened next, I was definitely not prepared. So, I don't know what it is about roaches, but I absolutely despise them. Some people hate spiders. Well, for me, it's this disgusting specimen. I was basically cringing in disgust the entire time I was fighting this man. Over here, sitting 6 feet away from my monitor. Social distancing. Anyways, the dude's creepy movements weren't really that bad in game, to be honest. They might have dealt psychological damage to me in real life, but that doesn't really matter. Because Carl was doing great until I actually finished this kill. Because then, this happened. Oh, bro, what the heck? This man's head just separated from his body, and he came back to life. But a few headless shots later, he was down. Bro, I was not prepared for that. And then somehow the orb weaver managed to follow me into the ranger station. That's illegal. But after some technical difficulties, day 50 began, and I found some spicy arrows. But with only 50 days left to 100% this game, I still had a lot to do. The ranger quests were like 3/4 of the way done, but my bug index still had a ton of things missing, and most of them were degenerates. So after spending the rest of day 50 grinding some resources and working on the base. Hey, how's it going, dude? But it was now day 51, and I made this little ramp in the gap so I could parkour onto the roof whenever evil ladies raid me without consent. I'll put a turret up here later and, you know, actually finish the roof, because during the build montage, I found out a couple things. First of all, there's a ranger station. edgelord, and this one has some public transportation. I found myself all the way over by the ceremony from that like fast travel thing, but I needed to unlock the door from the other side for it to work. And that's pretty cool and all, but I also found something pretty huge for this run over on the very edge of the map next to the trash bags, and that was lingonberries. The chunks of skin from my berry victims can be used to make lingonberry leather, which is the last ingredient that I need to upgrade my Omni Hammer to level 2, which opens up a lot of possibilities. I also had all the stuff for the shovel level 2, but Carl wasn't educated enough in science class for that. But anyways, the hammer was magical, literally, because this thing can absolutely destroy a breath mint. Hello, sir. And breath mints are used for what, you might ask? Ice staff.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Let's see what this thing can do. Cut that part out. The basic attacks had pretty decent range, but when I do this charge up attack thing, it turns that man into a snow globe. And it definitely depends on the enemy type and their different weaknesses and resistances, because the roaches were completely immune. But mosquitoes, on the other hand, mosquitoes are going to fear Carl. Anyways, I went back to my hometown for the evil hacker lady's raid appointment. But then it finally happened. Oh no! My tower had fallen, and I found myself on foot, surrounded by mind-controlled heathens. I perished that day, but it was now day 53. And after doing some base stuff, and realizing that I should probably make some better armor, I wanted to do one of these 2 transmitters on the map. But before that, there was this one place I really wanted to check out real quick. So I went back to the first anthill and stole a couple of their future children. Turned their future children into a bomb mixed with spicy pepper bits, because over by this spider that was in a bit of a sticky situation, there was a cracked door. And assuming that that means I can blow it open and not the other crack where it's a drug house, I told Kevin to get out of the way and launched the smallest bomb of all time. Nice. Inside this cave, I found a mega milk moldy, which is different than the regular ones, and it allows me to increase the max stack size in my inventory. Oh, that's actually really cool. That was the only thing in this cave though, and with that, I headed back over to the lingonberry bush for the next transmitter. I wasn't 100% sure if this was the right way up, and I also wasn't sure what I was going to find up here, but I began Ark Survival ascending these branches, until eventually I saw one. Oh, we're definitely in the right spot.
Has positive connectors. One for the companion.
Dude, seriously? So, yeah, that happened. I was on full health, bro. It was pretty obvious that I needed some upgrades. So back at base, I made a butterfly robe, a scorpion face mask, and some sizzling boots to protect Carl's microscopic toes. But what I didn't realize until like right now was that for the special effects of armor, like this double crit damage thing on the scorpion face mask, you need the full 3-piece set bonus. And I just wasted all of my resources on mixing the sets. Good times. I don't know why I'm like this, but anyways, the armor was still way better than before. So after mountain climbing up a twig and sending Spider-Man to the Shadow Realm, bye, have a great time, I made it back. And since I took out one of the bomb beetles last time, it was pretty easy to finish the other dude off. Honestly, everything by itself is really not bad. But after hacking into the location, the next army was revealed to be by the fire pits. So I severed the legs of Jabba the Hutt for fun, took the ultimate shortcut,
My trousers will need a wash.
and spent the rest of the day doing a couple things at base for some ranch quests. But as the sun rose on day 55, it was time to explore some new domains. So after casting Expelliarmus on Sociopath, with the sole purpose of stealing his breath mints, I know that I'm supposed to do all the transmitters before heading over to the statue area over here. And by the way, that's where the hacker lady told me to meet her after she got done crashing out when I stole all her blueberries.
I asked you not to do that!
but I kind of just wanted to scout it out and see what we were going to be dealing with. So after traversing the entire continent of my local park, I found this microphone that bro just dropped in the middle of the grass for some reason. Like, whoever uses this park are the most forgetful and inconsiderate people that I've ever seen. Like, bro, there's just personal belongings and rotten hot dogs from Billy's Moist and Hot every 5 foot on the ground. But anyways, I eventually found the entrance to the ceremony, right next to a praying mantis nymph. The entrance was in a pipe, and as soon as I entered, the battle had already begun. But I continued on until I made it to the central area, where the gassiest man of all time tried to assault Carl's nostrils. But luckily I had my gas mask to silence his opponents. And after going through this little route thing and a pathway that was way darker than it should be, we had arrived in the end game. Oh, is this a maze? The maze was absolutely massive. And the first section I came across had 2 stinky boys, 2 mosquitoes, and some bombardier boys in the back, all of which have been brainwashed by an evil hacker lady. There was a sub 0% chance that I'm surviving that without better armor or some bombs or something, so I just went the other way, and eventually I found some leaves that allowed me to parkour on top of the walls. And bro, what I saw from up here had Carl shivering his timbers. I'm not prepared for this, but there was also a ranger station here right next to the giant northern scorpion. I wanted to unlock the respawn point, and they even left me a nice home-cooked meal inside. Garfield would approve. The back of this ranger station had some blueberry bandages, and the other side of that locked door from earlier, so now I can kind of fast travel here. I decided I should probably go ahead and leave and come back after I finish the transmitters. So with a new goal in mind, I spent the night in a drug lab, and before I knew it, day 56 had begun, and my destination was the fire pit. I didn't get super close over here, but just using Carl's 3 brain cells, I could tell that it would be pretty hot. I'd probably need the heat-resistant sizzle clothes to actually join the barbecue. But before I could even think about doing that, I found this tunnel underground.
As Allie would say.
Oh! Despite almost having a heart attack, my inventory was completely full, and I wanted to make some heat-resistant armor for the barbecue. So I went back to base, dropped some things off, checked on the recipes, and the Sizzle Mage armor requires me to farm some lingonberries and some red-hot chili peppers. And on a side note, every single point of interest on my map here, all the little yellow, like archway looking things, they're kind of like side quests, and some of them have some really cool things going on. I'm gonna explore them all. Should be a lot easier now that I have heat resistance, gas masks, all that good stuff. Until the entire species of lingonberry was inside Carl's backpack. And I was able to craft 20 lingonberry leather. The day was coming to an end though, and I kind of wasn't paying attention. But long story short, in the middle of the night, I got jumped while I was away from my base. And it was the most chaotic thing Carl has ever witnessed. But in the end, Carl survived World War III, and he lived on to see another. Dude, I think I'm getting kind of good at these raids. And when another day finally rolled around, I decided that the best use of my free will was to climb up an oversized picnic table and break open the spicy exterior of every single member of the red hot chili peppers that I could find. And that should be enough spicy candy chunks for the Sizzle armor. But while I was here, I discovered something that I completely missed the first time. Oh, wait a minute. Can I open this thing? If I could figure out both 3-digit combinations on this briefcase, I could actually get inside. And at the time, I had no idea where to even begin with that. But don't worry, because I figured it out later. Anyways, I slayed a couple black and yellow residents of the picnic, because I'm pretty sure that their fuzz lets me make the cold-resistant armor for the ice cream truck. And over back at base, I made a full set of Sizzle armor, transforming Carl into the spiciest mage in the tri-state area. Wizzy Wizard. Staff hits increase the speed of your attacks up to 5 times. Not much else happened on day 57, but on day 58, I had a newfound motivation. Or maybe I was just procrastinating because I hate roaches and that's what's at fire pit. But either way, I made a couple backup gas masks because I wanted to clear out the toxic anthill and get that optical disc for more crafting recipes. As I entered the cave, it was quiet, too quiet. And I quickly realized that no mortal was gonna survive in here. But unfortunately, something was was in here, because after a bit of soul searching, finding nothing more than poison and the skeleton of a rat, but as I continued forward, well, the roaches were thriving. Dude, please just die. The bottom area was completely covered in toxic sludge. After doing some toxic parkour, I made it to the arena. At least what I thought was an arena. And I was expecting an obese cockroach the size of Burgle's head to rip Carl in half, but nothing happened. I was still on edge though, so I chopped down this mushroom, stole some blueberry bandages from this old decrepit dude, and reluctantly, I secured the package. But the optical disc wasn't the only thing in here, because over in the back, Gloom Skewer. The Gloom Skewer was a unique weapon that wasn't possible to craft. I'm not exactly sure how good it is, but I was definitely going to be testing that out soon. Because on day 59, after upgrading my Omni Shovel and examining the head of my mortal enemy, I crafted a fuzzy shirt and a fuzzy hat from the hair of a honeybee, and I just needed a bit more for the fuzzy muckluck boots so I could explore the ice cream cart from earlier. I also used a lot more of the upgrade materials to beef up Carl's wizarding abilities, and now I was so prepared that there were no more excuses. It was time to stop procrastinating and head to the fire pit. When I arrived, there was a bunch of burnt grass here that I didn't try to farm the first time, but it doesn't really matter because when Kevin's pinchers make contact, it just disintegrates on the spot. Anyways, we headed towards the fire pit to investigate. But once again, Kevin was not allowed on the premises. Once again, Carl was on foot, and my new armor definitely slowed down the sizzling effects, but it didn't completely stop them from roasting Carl. I had to still be careful. The sizzling wasn't the main issue though, because when I made it up to this little entrance in the side of the fire pit, I pulled out the spyglass, and to my surprise, there were orc roaches everywhere. Ew. Some small, and some bigger than your mother. But I decided to play this tactically and go for the back door. At least that's what I thought I was doing. And after slaying a full-grown man, I headed underneath the giant book bag, back into the tunnel, and the only way forward from here was the way of the degenerate. But once again, someone wasn't too happy about Carl's presence.
We're gonna turn around and make my candy and sugar starting alone.
I briefly took her request into consideration, but ultimately, the council has voted. The council is me and Kev, by the way. And you, Mrs. Hacker Lady, deserve death. The underground pipes were unfortunately a dead end. I don't know what she was yapping about a second ago. And it was time to confront the fire pit head on. But it was getting kind of late and Carl was kind of hungry, so I took a quick siesta. But when I arrived on day 60, well, I got threatened again.
My troops will pay you a visit. I hope you'll put up a fight.
The roaches have literally no weaknesses. But that wasn't stopping me, because it was now day 60. And it was also time for some roach fatality. What? So Carl just got roasted. Carl never heard about if you can't take the heat, stay out of the kitchen. But I reincarnated, and round 2 consisted of slaughtering a nymph, icing out a beetle, trick-shotting the roach triplets, and harvesting a very milky molar. Anyways, the coast was clear, so I decided to climb this twig to the top and see what was waiting up there. But when I arrived, what is that? According to Carl's bug expertise, that was a cockroach queen. I'm gonna head out. Dude, she looks like she hasn't showered since the dawn of time. And even though Kevin wasn't allowed in the fire pit, somehow he's able to respond to an Uber request from the top. My plan was to once again sacrifice Kevin to achieve my goals. So I decided to climb on Billy's hot dog, send Kevin into battle as a distraction, bro's getting hard boiled right now, and declare war on the woman of my dreams. Nightmares are considered dreams. It didn't take long until Kevin entered the roach-infested afterlife. But luckily, Billy's very successful hot dog business saved Carl's life yet again. Every time that I'm on top of something like this, I feel like I'm cheating. The cockroach queen had more health than anything that I've seen yet, by far. But after her demise, oh, I forgot about that. I once again slayed her headless, creepy torso, revived the weakest link of my family, and farmed another Mega Milk Molar, which I used to increase the stack size of my consumables. And yeah, I think we can call this mission a success. Creepy, but a success. The Queen Cockroach was actually the last neutral creature for my bug index, but I was still missing 5 orcs, a few angry dudes, and a couple harmless guys as well. So with that, it was now time for bed. But sometimes, you know, you just kind of have to pull an all-night. And due to an evil hacker lady that wants to harvest Carl's kidneys, well, tonight was one of those nights. Luckily, I managed to find a supersized plastic sport, and it took a while because of how awkward all the angles were and everything, and Kevin got decapitated again. But long story short, Carl took the W, and he slept like a baby. But on day 61, I decided to check out the Ranger quest again. There were only 9 remaining. Most of them I think are related to clearing different areas of the map, but there were a few that I could go ahead and knock out. And there were also 2 more transmitters to clear as well, and a few interesting locations to explore. So I headed back to base to make some more food and organize my inventory. A decapitated head from a cockroach. Even like this, it's likely to survive for weeks. What in tarnation? Bro, I had that thing in my pocket. Anyways, I wanted to check out the ice cream cart and the cooler. So I made some fuzzy mukluks to complete my winter wardrobe, and I spent some time farming some food, some weed stems, and completing 2 ranger quests for making a cookery and 2 heal bosses. The fuzzy armor covered most of Carl, and my destination was the picnic table. This was my first time farming some of the chewed gum with my level 2 Omni shovel. Gum nugget? Okay, I would like to have a word with the developer that is in charge of naming that. But the reason I was here was for the cooler. This would be the perfect test for my fuzzy armor before I go exploring Ice Cream Land.
This area is positively Siberian.
The cooler had all of the same ice shard things as the ice cream cart did, and it also had a milk mold. But the problem was, Carl could only survive here for a couple minutes at a time before his shins began to contract frostbite. So I had to keep leaving and going outside to warm up every now and then, but there really wasn't much in here anyways, and when I made it to the very top, I only found a crow feather. But I did still need to come back here when I found out the combination to this briefcase. Anyways, I headed back to base for the night, and on day 63, I discovered the secret to why Billy was so successful. Billy's moist and meaty hot dog. 50 cents all night. Bro, that's a steal in today's economy. But it was now time to explore Hypothermia Land. So after upgrading my sizzle armor to level 3 for a ranger quest, and using the milk molar points to unlock a new mutation slot. Ooh, this one makes me run faster. The next ranger quest was for cooking up 5 bombs, which I need more ant eggs for some reason. But to be honest, I haven't really been crafting any of the more advanced weapons, and stuff like this would be really good to just have in general. But I set that aside for now, and located on my map one of the very few locations that I have yet explored. Ladies and gentlemen, it was time for Hypothermia Land. The ice cream was a little cold. I spent a lot of time just trying to explore the area, but there was just no way that Carl could possibly survive long enough to make it into that ice cream cart. This was pretty disappointing, but there had to be another way. So I regrouped with Kevin, and according to my calculations, sorry, I just wanted to say that because I'm standing on a calculator. Anyways, back at base, I farmed some sprigs to make a smoothie station. And apparently the gum nuggets can make smoothies that last longer. And this blazing brew here slows the rate at which chill shivers your timbers. This was exactly what Carl needed, but it required apple bits, and I kind of thought that those weren't used for anything, and I ate them for lunch like 2 days ago. Anyways, I spent the rest of day 64 doing some base stuff, checking how many locations are left to explore, farming some upgrade materials, and getting a few perfect blocks for a ranger quest. But on day 65, I set out for the podium, where the final transmitter was located. Spoiler alert, this one's kind of insane. And on the way there, well, I found an apple, which is used for the blazing brew. But then I noticed. Wait a minute. Bro, I've had one this entire time?
Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing.
Buried treasure. Oh, spicy. The Brook Hollow Parks and Recreation podium was up ahead, and it might be the tallest structure on this entire map. But that's where I was headed, because there's a transmitter on top. As I entered the podium, I saw some note cards that were left behind from a TED Talk, and a spiderweb bridge that led to the top. But instead, I decided to go on these giant tools, which seemed like an easier route. And it was, until I saw a spider of the wolf variety. But luckily, that man was in stage 7 REM sleep, so I snuck past him, stole his gum nuggets. Wait, did y'all just see that? Carl put his face on backwards. I guess Carl woke up on the wrong side of his forehead this morning, but I wasn't gonna let that stop me from harvesting science in a cup. And a couple number 2 pencils, a bit of climbing, and another gum nugget later, I found this hole in the side of the podium, and it had a little like groove that let me climb up the outside. So I did that for a little bit until I realized that Kevin is gonna make me fall. Kevin, stay. And from here, I would have to go on foot. So I climbed up these rusty nails, got a good glimpse of the backside of Carl's nostrils in the process, attended another science seminar, and eventually made it up to the top level. The top of the podium was more or less the same, but it had a little bit of spiciness mixed in. But as I slowly climbed this giant microphone, I could hear the noises of my mortal enemy existing menacingly above. So I kind of climbed up to the top of the little microphone cord, and I tried to peek up and scout it out. There were 2 orc butterflies, which aren't really that bad on their own, but anytime there's 2 of something in this game, well, it's significantly harder. But this is as ready as Carl was gonna get. So I jumped on top of the podium, and Carl began his public speech. Kevin, how did you get up here? Kevin only lasted about 10 seconds. And normally the ice staff is super strong against these guys. But since there were 2 of them and they hit super hard, I was spending 90% of my time just trying not to perish. And eventually, I had to go back into the hole to heal up, drink some smoothies, and refill my food. I was actually kind of confident for some reason, because this time I thought I was prepared. But 5 seconds later,
I'm almost medically frozen.
Carl was half health from 1 freeze. And since the bandages stop healing when you take damage, there was basically nothing that I could do. So as a last resort, I was gonna try and use the hole as cover, but instead, well, this happened. Rest in pieces to Carl. That definitely did not go as planned, and I needed to come up with a better plan for next time. I did have these spicy arrows inside my inventory, which do sizzle damage, and these pollen arrows, which can ground flyers. And I was saving those for a special occasion, but I kind of have this problem when I play video games, where I save stuff for something important, but then I never deem anything as important, and then I just never use my best items. Does anybody else do that? Is that just me? Anyways, this time was different, because I actually decided to use the arrows. But I wasn't sure if that would be enough on its own, so I spent the rest of the day making some smoothies that might help out. And I also made some of these orc and butterfly parts into 3 of these flash further things, which are supposed to stun orc creatures within their radius. But at the start of day 67, it was time for a 2v2 rematch. Carl and Kevin versus the Butter Boys. So after witnessing a beetle spawn camping his lunch outside my base, Kevin brainwashed his inferior, and I scanned a baby scorpion because I forgot to do that before apparently. But after a little bit more tomfoolery, we arrived at the podium. And this time when I was climbing up, I saw these rusty nails are actually harvestable, but they're not yet. I think they plan on adding them or something later, but it's like left in the code. I don't know. This game's in beta. Anyways, that doesn't really matter because I got my stuff back, immediately downed 5 entire crumbs of the red hot chili peppers, and poured 3 different questionably sourced beverages directly into Carl's esophagus. These increased my max health, gave me some cold resistance for the butterflies, and gave me some trickle health regen. This is the most prepared I've ever been. To be honest, all of this stuff together was super overpowered, and it made the fight so much easier. The main issue, however, was that there's still 2 of them dudes, and Kevin waited until the very last minute to show up. And with 2 butterflies both ready to put Carl in the froze zone, it was like impossible for me to get any health regen. Things were not looking good. And by the way, if you're thinking, why didn't he throw those bombs that he made? I don't know. I was under a lot of stress, okay? And it didn't take long for my potions to start running out, and just like that, well, I got decapitated. Oh, I forgot to use the stun bomb things. But this time I respawned in the Ranger outpost, where I informed Sloan that I hacked another transmitter.
Mega rad, brother. Sorry, I don't interact with young people much, but I'm trying.
And a few minutes later, I made it all the way back up to the podium. It was time for round 3, and this time, Carl was not messing around. I had the pollen arrows on standby, which can ground flyers, and I also had all of the flash further bombs in my quick slot. I also put all 3 smoothies directly into Carl's windpipe again. Needless to say, the butterflies didn't stand a chance. So that went extremely well, suspiciously well.
Attack on sight.
And just like that, the final transmitter was hacked. I think I've been making this a lot harder on myself than it needs to be just because I'm too lazy to craft things and I don't want to use all the special items I have all the time. But anyways, the orc soldiers were waiting over by the lectern from this transmitter. And the mixer underneath the skateboard that we saw earlier, well, I won't spoil too much about that, but it's now ready for an event. An insane event, but that's all I'm gonna say for now. Because I need to clear the orc soldiers from the lectern first. So after breaking 7 of Kevin's 8 kneecaps, I spent a minute taking in the view. And I headed back down, where I found this man. I haven't actually fought any wolf spiders yet. I've been spending most of my time running from them and cowering in fear. And since I had the high ground, I assumed that this would be a pretty good opportunity, and honestly, it should be pretty easy. But what actually happened, well... Mr. Wolf had a 10 centimeter vertical, but luckily the other bottle was high enough where he kind of got confused, and then he just got straight up stuck. Get wrecked. But if there's ever an orc wolf spider in like one of those flat arenas where I can't build anything, I think Carl might be done for. Anyways, I'll think about that later, because right now I had a new goal. And after analyzing the fangs of my victim and his severed hairy booty under my microscope, I checked all the recipes for some different arrow types, crafted a sizzle staff, and noticed that the wolf spider armor is the only tier 3 armor that I can make right now. Ooh, I need to start killing more wolf spiders. But it was now day 68, and it was time to explore the remaining new areas to get the last 2 turbo discs for crafting. Well, right after I collected some more apple bits, looked at them very closely, and mixed them into a smoothie.
Exoskeleton activated.
But then I set out, and the first stop was a crow tail feather, because I need that for some special arrows. But next up was a trip back to hypothermia land, and when I arrived, I found a cave. It was pretty dark in there, and there were a lot of scorpions, but whenever I made it to the other side, I found myself inside the ice cream cart. And I was very conflicted, because on one hand, my favorite thing is inside, ice cream. And on the other hand, my least favorite thing is inside. Please die. I didn't really have time to explore the area too much because I was in the process of fighting frost, but I kept climbing up, and eventually I made it into this top chamber where I jumped onto this leaf, climbed up on top of it, and all of a sudden I'm not cold anymore. Carl was on top of the world. Well, actually he was on top of the ice cream cart. But it wasn't cold up here, and I actually saw a crow. He was too far away to scan though, and I'm not really even sure if he can or not. Anyways, the very top had this bicycle wheel with a yoke girth mega milk molder on top. But the optical disc for the crafting recipes, however, was clearly back down inside the ice cream cart or the cave or somewhere down there. It was time to head back in. I really don't like this place because I'm on a timer and I keep feeling like I'm just not gonna make it back out. But in this first section, I grabbed some breath mints, got jump scared, topped off my food and water, and downed another blazing brew for some insulation. I spent a few minutes getting lost inside these tunnels and jump scared by scorpions until eventually it was too cold and I had to go back to warm up. But when I made it back up top, I actually managed to scan Crowmeda. Hello, sir. Goodbye, sir. I thought that he was the last creature left in the harmless category of my bug index, but there was actually one more. Wait a minute, why have I not scanned an aphid? The angry category still had one creature left as well, right between the Wolf of Wall Street spider and the mantis that wants to find a husband to decapitate. There's also like a lot of orcs. Anyways, the journey to the center of the ice was a bit boring, so I won't make you watch too much of it, but essentially what happened was I just kept wandering around random tunnels while scorpions tried to sting Carl from all angles, acute and even obtuse. And since my time was limited before Carl passes away, I couldn't really fight back. And eventually, I thought I reached a dead end, but there was something else dead in here as well. And this man had the turbo disc. Oh, it's right here. He also had some flares, and by the time I made it outside, nightfall had already approached. And despite Carl's toes already containing icicles, it was getting even colder. But as a last-ditch effort, I tried using the flare, which miraculously cured Carl's hypothermia, and he lived on to see another day. I actually can't believe I'm alive right now. So with the optical drive secured, this aphid scanned, a meal on the go consumed. Oh, the fire staff cooks the things you kill. Day 68 came to an end. But on day 69, it was time to pick up the pace. And I started out by making 5 more orc bombs for the fight ahead, because after this lectern, which I'm about to do, the next objective was the mixer. And spoiler alert, it's extremely difficult. So first of all, I needed some food. Thanks, bro. And second of all, well, I need to scan this. This optical disc coming from the ice cream cart fully unlocked Carl's taste buds, with a recipe option to make upgrade materials from sap, a fridge to keep things from spoiling, and even some brand new food recipes. Mac and bees? I'm not gonna lie, that sounds kind of good. So I spent a little bit of time exploring things that I haven't fully seen, but in terms of locations on the actual map, the only one thing left that has a turbo disc was in the top left corner, and it was the spider anthill. And now I've kind of been putting this off, but I think it's probably time to just go ahead and finish this, get all the crafting recipes, and then I can shift all of my focus to the final boss fights. So after bonding with Kevin on a road trip, Carl eventually arrived outside of the spider anthill, and well, bro, this fire staff is kind of insane. The spider anthill was actually terrifying though. And as soon as I made it into the first area, bro, this looks like it should be a location in Silent Hill or something. It was pretty clear that Carl just wasted a lot of time bonding with Kevin, because that man's not surviving in here. As I continued through the anthill from a horror game, it was mostly just Kevin's estranged family members running around, and a dead guy. But as the anthill eventually got lower, it turned into a cave. And I found this memorial crate where there was something lodged into this gum nugget. Crimson Avenger Dagger. Bro, what is that? Please don't tell me I'm gonna have to fight whatever that is. As I entered the next tunnel, some of Kevin's cousins had been brainwashed by the evil hacker lady.
Yes, Captain.
But anything that is remotely related to Kevin was the easy one. Because after finding the turbo optical disc on a dead guy and kidnapping like 35 of Kevin's unborn apprentices, well, I had everything that I needed here. And the back part of the cave was filled with orb weaver carcasses. I should have seen that and I should have turned around there. But instead, I decided, against my better judgment, to continue on into Mr. Wolf Spider's domain. Holy, that's a lot of legs. The amount of arachnids that wanted to murder Kevin was astronomical. Arachnominal, you could say. But I kind of forgot to put the granola bars back into my quick slots, and that's like the only healing item I have. So while I was in my inventory to eat them, I think we all know what happened next. And since it was already getting kind of late outside, I decided to just go ahead and spend the night in the Wolf of Wall Street's spider-like backyard. But on day 71, well, Kevin didn't actually lose his inventory like I do when I die. Oh, I still have the ant eggs. So I made a quick trip to the lab, where the final regular optical disc gave me a few more recipes, including this milk molar scanner. Well, it's actually not the final one. There's one super turbo optical disc thing at the statue, but we're working on that. Anyways, back at base, I used the ant eggs to make a few broad burst bombs. And I still had a few left that I didn't want to waste, so I forced Kevin into indentured servitude and extorted maximum dry grass profit from that man's labor. I made a few more prop bursts. And that was also a ranger quest, by the way. Anyways, I headed back to the spider hill to get my stuff back, and this time I decided to go to the backside other entrance, right next to these wormhole candy things. Mr. Wolf Spider was camping again, but after I slow roasted him using my fire staff, I noted the total sugar intake of a serving of wormhole, 21 grams of sugar. Nice. And slowly, Ark survival descended into the anthill. I was expecting World War III to break out at any moment, but I guess the wolf spider was the one that I just spit roasted in my backyard like 3 seconds ago. And minus a couple of orb weavers, nobody else was home, and I got my stuff back pretty easily. But it was now time to prepare for the mixer, which would be the hardest thing I've done on this game up to this point. So I spent the rest of day 71 farming some lingonberries to repair my armor, doing some upgrades, giving a caterpillar some false hope.
A caterpillar! Your journey through metamorphosis lies ahead.
Just kidding. And being raided by a hacker weirdo. And on day 72, after having my neighbors over for lunch, literally, I needed to go ahead and clear the orc army from that podium transmitter before doing the mixer. Kind of forgot about that. So I traversed the map, and while I was over here, I decided to go ahead and explore the last quadrant of the map that I haven't seen yet. And I won't go into too much detail because there's not really anything here and not much really happened. But I did find an empty terrarium, which was kind of cool, and a giant mega milk molar, which allowed me to upgrade my stack size to 20. Oh, there's another one. There was also this just slap speaker thing, but the cave underneath didn't really have anything. Almost had a stroke trying to pronounce that. But with that out of the way, it was now time to follow the transmitter. And someone was really starting to dislike Carl.
You need to Stay away from this place. There are valuable minerals out here that would be wasted on you. You need to stop sticking your nose where it doesn't belong.
No matter what this crazy woman says, Carl was determined to end her career. Honestly, I was a bit disappointed because she hyped this place up like it was a government security bunker or something. Like, bro, there's a couple rocks here. But then I noticed that one of the walls was looking highly suspicious. Oh, there's definitely something back there. I found, well, something. And the chest inside contained a special ladybug shield as well as some upgrade materials. And I don't really use shields too much, but it might come in handy later if I actually do have to melee. So with that out of the way, every mainline story quest was now complete, except for the mixer and the final statue ceremony thing. And it was now time to start preparing for the biggest fight of Carl's tiny little life. So while I was over here, I went back to the podium to farm some gum nuggets for smoothies. And I'm really glad that I did, because there were two things here that I missed the first time. First of all, there was a mega milk molar, which increased my consumable stack size to 15. But when I made it all the way to the top, I saw something in the corner of my eye. There was a note card with a few numbers on it, and normally this wouldn't mean much. 514, wait, that's for the briefcase. I finally found the code to the briefcase, and Carl got a little bit too excited. So excited, in fact, that he forgot how to gravity. But on day 74, I headed over to the picnic table to try out this 514 combination. When I entered all three numbers on the left side, the latch was not coming unlocked. So I tried it again on the other side, and it worked. Okay, we just need the other code. So I spent like 15 minutes searching on the picnic table just to make sure that I didn't miss an easy code somewhere around here, and I didn't really find much. But I did find this area under the tablecloth that I missed before, and it had some blueberries and another giant mega milk molar. But then, right when I was about to leave, I came back across this newspaper, and I was staring directly at the page that says 137. Oh, it's right there. Anyways, when I headed back over to the briefcase and inputted 137 into the combination, well, I was excited. And this is why you don't get your hopes up for things, because I was let down pretty bad. There was some spicy candy, some breath mints, a science lecture, and a milk molar inside.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
All of these things I can just find somewhere else. So I returned to my humble abode in deep sadness, but after doing some base stuff and upgrading my fire staff to level 3, day 75 began, and I had exactly 25 days left to finish the 4 remaining ranger quests, survive the mixer, finish the main story and get Burgle's head back, and hopefully figure out how to hatch that spider egg that I found earlier. But when I opened the ranger terminal, I found this. Oh, is that a basketball hoop? I'm so gonna dunk on Kevin. I also unlocked the milk molar scanner, which should help out a lot, but the main reason I was here were for the 4 remaining ranger quests, which consisted of perform perfect blocks, break enemy blocks with dash strikes, and both of those are pretty easy, I just need to actually use melee weapons, decimate a praying mantis nymph, and craft something that I haven't unlocked yet. But my other immediate objective was the mixer. Yeah, right. It says that I'm gonna have to defend against all of these different things. Orb weavers, scorpions, ladybugs, praying mantis nymphs, you know, the standard degenerates. But none of them are flyers, and I'm assuming that it's gonna be like a tower defense type of thing, so I'm gonna build some defenses and walls around the mixer. But first things first, I needed to knock out those ranger quests. So I spent about 15 minutes just searching around for a praying mantis nymph until eventually I found one. Bro, she has her husband tied up, held hostage right now. I told y'all these dudes were freaky. So apparently these dudes are resistant to spicy and stabbing. Yet they're weak to stabbing if it's done inside their eye socket. And well, a bow is considered stabbing. And since she's resistant to spiciness, I decided to load up the frostbite mint arrows. It's time to freshen the breath of her retinas. Well, that didn't go well. The ice staff is a bit too slow for something that jumps higher than LeBron James, and it's like impossible to dodge that dude. But there was a branch over here that was high enough to where I might not have to. So I loaded up another minty fresh arrow, and it was time for round 2. And just like that, The turns have tabled. The praying mantis's head was still staring at Carl, even in death. Well, that's disturbing. But I'm pretty sure that this is going to unlock some insane crafting recipes. So after embarrassing myself yet again, day 76 began. And I started off the day by putting my victim's head under a microscope and staring him directly in the eyes. I also analyzed his torso and his severed legs too. But the mantis body parts unlock some recipes for the mantis blade, which is a tier 3 sword, and some garden snail armor for some reason. I don't know why it unlocked that, but the snail armor is tier 3 just like the wolf spider armor. There was also this volatile capacitor made from his cheekbones that can release a shockwave on charged up melee attacks. And I was debating if I wanted that or this orc nullifier, which decreases the damage of the orcs, but I went with the capacitor because that just sounds kind of cool. And I also set up a basketball hoop inside my living room to showcase Carl's peak athleticism. Bro, that is not how you shoot a basketball. Trick shot. I spent the rest of day 76 doing the 2 easier ranger quests, which consisted of perfect blocks on Kevin's apprentice, and breaking 3 enemy blocks using dash strikes, which essentially just means that I charge up these daggers and then hit them while they're blocking. Be gone, heathen. And just like that, 46 out of 47 ranger quests have been completed. And the last man standing was to craft 5 chunky smoothies. What is a chunky smoothie? I wasn't 100% sure, but over in the smoothie station, I noticed that the normal is using the sludge stuff. The sticky is with the gum stuff like I've been crafting, and I assumed that chunky was using something else that I haven't found yet. But anyways, I ended off the day by testing the shockwave thing against a hacker lady. And on day 77, after repairing some armor, I spent most of the day enlisting Kevin into indentured servitude again, and wasted some time organizing stuff at base, and getting all the materials together for an acorn turret. Because on day 78, after recruiting Kevin's apprentice to our platoon, it was finally time to confront Mr. Mixer. And I won't make you watch all this, but I wanted to set up a barricade. So I spent like 20 minutes pressing the right trigger on my controller, forcing Kevin to become a weed farmer. But 20 minutes later, Carl had fully barricaded the mixer using a mixture of round and straight palisade walls. Each one of these took an entire 8 weed stems and 2 crude rope, by the way. But Kevin finished off his day by hoarding some more weed before bed. And on day 79, Carl woke up and finally chose to become a productive member of our society. There was a lot to be done, starting with Hulk smashing some pebbles, slurping dewdrops with passion, and crafting 50 entire pebble shots for the acorn turret. Now I just have to actually build the acorn turret. So I went back over to the vacation house, set up this platform, and then I almost had a heart attack. Whoa! I pulled Carl's bowstring as far back as his little arms would let him, but my arrows hit this man with the strength of a wet noodle. And I thought that all my hard work was going to be destroyed right in front of my eyes. Dude, he's doing so much damage to the walls. Luckily, he decided to impale Kevin instead of me, and I thanked him for his service with 37 stabs to the elbow. I then decided to celebrate by commanding Kevin to chop down a bunch more weed stems. Bro, Kevin balances weed stems like one of those waiters at a fancy restaurant. It took a bit longer since I had to repair all of the walls from the encounter with a direwolf spider, but after everything was looking as good as new, I used the materials I brought with me to set up a tower for my acorn turret. I thought it looked kind of nice at the time, but to be honest, you can't even see like the edge of the walls, so there's no way I'm hitting anything with this. And now everything was almost ready, and my plan was to go back to base and do some final preparations. But sometimes in life, things don't always go to plan. Because when I arrived, wait, where's my ice staff? I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out how my ice staff just randomly vanished off the face of the earth. Bro, it was fully upgraded. Carl never found his ice staff. But anyways, it was now day 81, and I no longer had an ice staff. I was probably subconsciously hiding it as an excuse to procrastinate, to be honest. But at this point, I was as prepared as I was gonna get. And this time, I'm actually going to use all of the weapons at my disposal. Unfortunately for Carl, though, I completely forgot to bring healing items. This was gonna be a problem, and I didn't even realize it at the time. All right, Kevin, I'll see you in the afterlife.
A lot of dead bodies under this park. What's a few more?
for his wounded steed.
I worked so hard.
Those scorpions were scary, man. I was just throwing them things. But anyways, I summoned Kevon to help me carry some loot because Kevin is indisposed at the moment. And since I got a lot of scans in during that fight, I wanted to check out the bug index to see what was left. There were still a couple gaps in the orc section, and I think that this top one is an orc weaver from Weenie Hut Juniors. I just kind of forgot to scan them for some reason. And one of these on the bottom is probably an orc wolf spider if I had to guess, but I have no idea what that last orc is or the last angry bird. I mean, angry bug. But I did know one thing. That fight was difficult. Almost too difficult for a single player, to be honest. Like, dude, that was insane. And I don't think there's any more in the game right now, but they are going to be adding a bunch of these different wave type of fights. But there was a whole new area with an entire boss fight waiting by the statue. And I'm not going to lie, I was pretty scared. Because if that fight is worse than the mixer, I'm not sure if I'm going to beat it. I had to get Burgle's head back though, no matter the cost. Even if that cost is Kevin. No offense, buddy. But with all of my resources drained and Kevin's kneecaps being shattered, I needed to come up with a plan to take down the hacker lady. And it all started with some acorns, because it was now day 83, and it was time to do some significant upgrades. It all started with Carl's armor and weapons, because I currently only had 2 different tier 3 armor options available. The first one is wolf spider armor, which is good for a rogue type of playstyle using daggers. And the second one is garden snail armor, which is good if you want to roleplay as being obese with no reflexes. But since those were the only 2 options, I think that keeping what I have, or this tier 2 ranger armor, maybe, might be the better option here. But I did still want to try the wolf spider armor. And the main reason was because in this weapons category, I actually have everything for the Mantis blade as well as the wolf spider daggers, which deal poison damage. And I was considering that at first, but then I saw this. The wolf spider bow. Dude, the damage increase from orb weaver to wolf spider is insane. And now there were 3 things left that I needed to grind out. The first were explosives. And I needed some more ant eggs and mite fangs for the Brock burst. The second thing that I wanted were these different ammo types because they do way more damage in the bow. And the third thing were some smoothies and different ways to heal up and do more damage. So I spent the rest of my afternoon executing mites to steal their dental work, raiding Kevin's family for their unborn children, and farming some upgrade materials. And after that entire 9 to 5 shift, I could now craft 1 micro atomic bomb. Only 1? The mite fangs were gonna be an issue. But using this bomb, I actually wanted to try something. Because these garden snails are impossible to kill normally. Because the minute you lodge an arrow into their slimy forehead, the dude hides under his bed like the coward he is. So I was kind of thinking, what if I launched a nuke instead of an arrow?
And he stands there, unfazed!
What? I sniped him from afar. Anyways, the rest of day 84 was spent planning for war, preparing dinner for tomorrow, slaying some peasants, and looking my victim's eye stalk directly in the eyes under a microscope. But there was still a lot of preparation to do, and you've kind of seen all of this before, and I think we all know what that means. It's time for a 30-second upbeat grind montage. A somewhat significant amount of time has passed, but it was now day 93, and I had 7 days remaining. But more importantly, my inventory was absolutely loaded. A somewhat significant amount of time has passed, but it was now day 93, and I had 7 days remaining. But more importantly, my inventory was absolutely loaded, including 25 disruptor arrows, over 30 of the spicy and minty fresh ones, 7 pollen arrows, my bow and armor are all at max level, 13 heal bosses from my mosquito brethren for healing, and enough smoothies to own a Dairy Queen for an all-you-can-eat buffet. Get it? Because they give buffs.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Oh, and I also have 16 orc bombs and 7 Bratburst bombs. I really wanted more Bratburst bombs, but it takes 4 mite fangs each, and most of these mites be walking around toothless. I actually tried going back to the tutorial area to keep farming the tutorial mites whenever you press the button, but these ones in the tutorial don't actually drop any resources, unfortunately. Anyways, I went on a thistle run real quick so I could make some extra regular arrows just in case I ran out, and I also filled my inventory with all of the things needed to craft an acorn turret, including the weed stems. At this point, I felt pretty over-prepared, and the only thing left to do now was execute the plan. I'm getting Burgle's head back. Once I entered the maze, I retraced my steps from before, sticking to the right side, avoiding the stinky boys, and using this leaf to completely bypass the entire thing from the top. But as I made my way over to the center, well, I needed to get inside of that bush shrub hedge looking thing, and there were also some brand new resources here that require a level 3 Omniax, but in the current version of the game, level 2 tools are actually the max. Anyways, I needed to find a way to actually get into the statue at the center, because that's where the evil hacker lady was holding Burgle's head. So after circling around the outskirts while swerving the advances of my scorpion adversaries, I eventually followed this giant garden hose that I low-key thought was a snake for a second, but also I found this pipe. But the minute Kevin's toenail grazed the pipe, that man went on a paid vacation, and so did his weed stash. Oh no! The weed stems all fell inside, and I can't climb with them on me, so I might not be making any acorn turrets anymore. But on the bright side, there was a whole new ranger station here, and there were some granola bars galore. I was kind of worried that I didn't have enough healed bosses, but now, with all these granola bars, I was pretty confident. I just needed to figure out where to go. So after harnessing the power of a giant mega milk molar inside a drug lab, and getting a full 8 hours of beauty sleep, because we all know Carl needs it, day 95 began. And I called for a taxi.
I'm ready for pickup!
The day started out with Carl launching a thistle directly into his neighbor's earlobe. He was, of course, upset by this and directed a full dose of venom into my love handle, but I was prepared, and I jumped up top, chugged a venom antidote, and I just now realized this isn't any ordinary scorpion. Captain Nitro, well, Captain Nitro is dead now. Mr. Nitro was guarding these roots, which is why I killed him, and for good reason, because when Kevin's pinchers cleared the way, I made it inside the shrub. We were getting super close to the evil hacker lady, and I could already see some of her goons. I wanted to make sure that while I was here, I finished the orc part of the bug index before this was over. So before continuing on, I checked back out the compendium, and after removing some lowlifes from their meaningless existence, I came across the statue checkpoint. Is that a cardboard cutout of Sloan? The checkpoint was filled to the brim with granola bars, which was pretty great, but the door was locked from the other side. So I continued along the branches, casually murdering Kevin's brainwashed nephew. And after the branch kind of looped back outside overlooking the park, and then back inside into the shrub, I eventually came out on the other side of the fence. This is where things got a little more difficult. I immediately saw a little cheeky mantis trying to stalk me from underneath that leaf, but I was trying to avoid combat as much as possible to save everything for my mortal enemy in the final area. But after farming a milk molar and finally remembering to scan the orb weaver from Weenie Hut Juniors, there were 2 orcs left on the compendium. Carl taught me that word, by the way. So I continued on, along the conveniently placed red carpet, which was guarded by a black and yellow degenerate. These dudes are pretty easy to take down with fire staffs, but when I actually got the kill, well, this happened. Whoa, dude, what just happened? Thanks for breaking the fall, Kevin. Anyways, I quickly digested a granola bar to restore Carl's health and wellness, and immediately found the next ranger station, which gave me even more granola bars. Bro, who is leaving granola bars everywhere? But at this point, I was getting super close. And after slaying an 8-legged buffoon, I made it. The statue of Burgle and his father, Bill. Nigh the science guy. This man was wearing size 375 Yeezys, and according to his peers, he's a proud father and a proud husband. I guess he's not very proud of being a science guy. But according to Bill, when it comes down to it, all that really matters is that we make the most out of the time we have together. And that was actually pretty wholesome. But I'm about to make the most out of my time with someone else, too. But after climbing into Burgle's statue, I heard a familiar voice confirming my suspicions.
Welcome to the network center, you little larva. I've got your friend the robot head up in Beaumont's penthouse.
This was Ominous main control center. I can see Billy's establishment from here, and I managed to go through this elevator tube thing and unlock the door from earlier. But as I continued through the hallways, the place was suspiciously empty. But they still had surveillance going, and the emptiness was not going to last long, because all of the Ominous employees were taken out by something. I suspect it was the hacker lady, and I don't have proof yet, but I will. So after taking a quick nap inside the lab, I entered the next room, where Carl made a bone-chilling discovery. Wait, is that me? Dude, what? Apparently, the hacker lady is also a stalker lady. Hey, look, there's Kevin. And I was slowly realizing that Kevin is probably not going to be allowed in the final boss fight. Because after attending orientation for my new job position...
Welcome to the Network Center. This is Sloan Beaumont, your new boss. It is your responsibility to ensure every piece of proprietary information remains safely inside our network.
But I made it all the way to another suction tube that brought me even deeper in. And what lied on the other side of that suction tube was absolutely despicable. Ew, no, bro, why does it have to be a cockroach? On the bright side, I now only had one orc left in my compendium. And my saving grace was the fact that I could hide behind this elevator thing, outsmarting the hacker lady yet again, because her cockroach queen was way too fat to reach me. And I took this opportunity to launch thistle arrows directly into her oversized face. And then when her oversized face popped off of her body, I just kept launching them into where her face used to be. And overall, I mean, that went about as smoothly as possible. Grounded, if you're watching this, you need to hire me as a beta tester, because I will find every exploit in your game. But apparently, that was not the end, because there's multiple floors in this statue, and the evil hacker lady was just getting started. So I stole the keycard of someone that was no longer with us, God rest his soul, and opened the left door, revealing two orphans that I just created. Sorry about your mother. And the right door, which contained her very angry husband. I'm so glad he's stupid. Since there was a lot of like smaller creatures, I decided to equip the explosive melee charm to relieve some orphans from their parentless existence. And inside this doorway, I flipped the first switch for the main door. But the other side that I cleared already didn't have any power to flip the other switch. This is bringing flashbacks from Keynote or Toten. But after a bit more searching and aimlessly wandering around, I eventually found this hole in the floor, where Carl went to trade school to become an electrician and patched up the 3 electrical faults in the wire.
Stop trying to do things.
And just like that, the power was back, and so was the second switch. But the center console still said there was another switch that needed to be flipped. And it took me a little bit to find it, but there was a very obviously placed hole in the wall that I don't know how I didn't see in this other room that drops down to this second section. And it comes out inside a third room where the final switch was revealed.
3 whole relay switches. Damn. Ominous should hire you.
So many eyes, but you didn't see me coming. Okay, that goes kind of hard. But now, with all 3 of the switches activated, the terminal was finally accessible. And my new objective was to find Burgle's head.
Courageous Pete wades through the bowels of the beast.
I'm starting to worry Burgle isn't really in this facility.
Finally made it up here. I'm warning you. When you open that door, your final challenge begins.
Hello again. In the yard. You were warriors. That's who I want to see. Your true selves.
Switch, right? I need to keep my composure.
So, you're not totally weak. I won't go that easy on you again. You can have Burgle's head. I got what I needed. I gotta go. Dr. Wendell Tully is waiting for me.
She's going for build 9. Just like that, the evil hacker lady has been defeated. The super turbo optical disc has been secured, and Burgle's head was still severed.
Burgle has information, but Burgle has problem making.
I think I may have over-prepared for that fight. The mixer was so absolutely ridiculously difficult that I thought this one was going to be like a lot worse, to be honest. But it wasn't over yet, because there was a sizzling key on the table, and the phone was ringing yet again. Hello?
Oh, so did you kill her?
Carl claims that he would never kill another mammal.
That's very sweet of you, Pete.
But Sloan was finally going to help us fix Burgle. It was just going to take some time. In fact, it was going to take so much time
I'll unlock the door to my office balcony.
that I have to wait for the full game to release. But there was still something that I've been waiting a long while to do, and we weren't done just yet. You're about to find out why in a minute. Because after climbing onto the roof, admiring Billy's successful hogs and all their moist and hot glory at 1 a.m., I parachuted back through the cemetery, entered the ranger station, and shoved the optical disc inside the slot. And the next thing I knew, Carl had unlocked the ability to brainwash his 8-legged co-workers. That's right, I can tame an orb weaver. So after sleeping in until 1 p.m., because I stayed up way too late fighting crime last night, I made my way back to where the orb weaver eggs were earlier. And this game didn't tell me this the first time, but this is actually headless Burgle, poor guy. Anyways, long story short, I kidnapped their unborn orbling, I ran, farmed some weed, built a hatchery, and placed the egg inside. And now, we wait. 24 hours, bro? I went AFK for 24 hours. But 24 hours later, Burgle Jr. was about to hatch. Kevin, get the camera! And when he did, I couldn't wait to introduce this man to my neighbor, Jabba the Hutt. They seem to get along pretty well. But then, well, what do I do now?
I don't know. I never thought I'd get this far.
Now, we wait, because the update isn't out yet. So as of now, Carl has completed 100% of Grounded 2. Had to prove myself to the haters. If this video does well, I might come back when the update hits, but for now, I have some more ARK 100 Days videos planned, including a vanilla challenge that I created. It's never been done before, and I promise you, it's absolutely the hardest one that anyone has ever attempted on YouTube in ARK. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Hopefully it's actually possible. So if you want to see that, please make sure you're subscribed. And if you like these non-ARK 100 Days videos, please leave a like for the algorithm to let YouTube know. If this video does well, Subnautica might be next. And don't forget to download Raid Shadow Legends using the QR code on screen or the link in the description below. And if you want to see me play 100 Days of ARK Survival Evolved, but I replaced every dinosaur with Haiju, click right here.